Oh, good morning, everyone. Evan Giddings, Dan Devone, Steven Risotto,
Evan's
a.k.a.
in love.
Pasta.
Evan's in love.
In love with the Golden State Warriors. I got to tell you, I have been fawning a little bit over this team the last couple of days, and it's because it's becoming clear to me. It's becoming, the picture is coming into focus. Things are arranging themselves as they should, Dan, and the Warriors are getting set to begin their postseason trek towards a potential fifth title tomorrow against the second-seeded Houston Rockets. What's up, man?
Let's go.
Yeah.
How fun is this?
That's the best time of year.
It's so much fun. And we haven't seen this for a couple of years. Just
know.
think about it, man.
Dude, where were we 365 days ago?
This series with Houston is just going, there are so many subplots to it, starting with their head coach and Curry, not to mention Steven Adams, and throw Draymond Green into all of this. The histrionics, if you're a Rockets fan when it comes to the Warriors. The Warriors, the team that prevented James Harden from getting to the promised land. I mean, all those characters are gone. Harden and Chris Paul and P.J. Tucker and Trevor Ariza. Who's the big Capella? I mean, they're gone, but it's still the Warriors. Those boys are still there. Those boys can still hunt. It's the same three.
That's the crazy part. Like, James Harden and Curry had their battles, starting literally 10 years ago. 2015, the Western Conference Finals, the first year that they went on and won the championship. James Harden dribbles it off his foot at the tail end of Game 5 and basically gives away the series. And it's like Curry and Draymond and Steve Kerr are still doing this.
Wait, that was Dwight Howard days, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was different iterations of the Rockets. There was the Dwight Howard Rockets. There was the Chris Paul Rockets. I think even 2019, there was the Russell Westbrook Rockets, of course, with James Harden. And now he's on his, he went to Brooklyn, Philly. He's been in 3 different locales since that point.
This is so exciting. I mean, who do you think is going to be the first to come unglued? Like, who's going to be the first guy to lose it in a press conference? First guy to get ejected? First guy to, really lose their S in this series? Obviously, Draymond is going to be, the obvious choice, but if there's a second play, there's some, you got Dillon Brooks in this thing.
I was going to say, I think it's going to be that guy. Who, by the way, and he deserves it, kind of the bad rap that he gets because he becomes a different person on the court. But off the court, he seems like such a cool guy. I don't understand the sort of switch that professional athletes are able to flip. And he, to me, is Exhibit A. Because in the Netflix Court of Gold documentary, he followed him around. He was part of Team Canada. He seems like just such a nice guy. There's these videos of him stopping and talking to people on the streets and signing things. His days at Oregon, apparently he was a good kid. And then he gets on the court, and I hate this guy. I absolutely cannot stand Dillon Brooks. And it's like he just turns into this villain immediately the moment he steps on the court. And, of course, he was the guy that knocked GP2 out of the air and broke his wrist in Game 2 back in the Memphis series. So I think if there's someone who's going to become unhinged, not named Dan Devone in this series, it's going to be Dillon Brooks. Speaking
of nice guys, I am beginning to rethink and what it is that you were saying last week about poor Buddy Hield, because he really is sort of the whipping boy over there. I think he's such a nice guy, and I see so many people going after him simply because, that happens. I always say this, my sister, who is the middle child in our family, is the nicest. Like, she's always appeasing people, right? You see that sometimes where the middle child always wants to help, like the helper. And people sometimes when we were younger would go after her because she was just so nice. And you knew there wasn't going to be any blowback. I think there's sort of that with Buddy Hield. He's just like sort of this punching bag that I'm like, come on, man, leave the dude alone.
Well, your family's got some different dynamics because I'm the middle child and I'm not the one that my siblings go to for help. No, it's not that I'm not nice.
How many kids?
There's 3 of us.
Okay.
Yeah, so actually, shout out to my sister who's just in town from Sweden for the last couple of weeks. Brought the kids in. Yeah, she's probably somewhere over the Atlantic right now, flying back towards Copenhagen. But Buddy Hield is absolutely the player on the Warriors that I feel for the most because he's someone that just swings a game so much. And it's so obvious when he's got it going that the Warriors are in great shape that you feel like if he could just do this semi-consistently, they'd be in a better spot. And the Warriors, to me, it's one of the reasons why I feel good about this series. And of course, we're going to break down all the X's and O's and what we think is going to happen. We'll give away predictions in the last hour. And 888-957-9570 is the number. YouTube and Twitch, powered by First North Cal Credit Union. You can get in on the conversation of Warriors this week. But they have a lot of X factors, it feels like, in the series. Buddy Hield is absolutely one of them. I'm not sure he factors into this series as much for me as he might a different matchup. But they have 4 or 5 guys that I think are going to be important, not named Steph, Draymond, and Butler. Whereas the Rockets, I think it's, for me, probably 1 or 2 out of their non-main characters.
Well, forget about Draymond. When it comes to Butler and Steph, if you take them out of the picture, which is what obviously Houston is going to try to do, especially when it comes to one Steph Curry. And the thing about Houston is that they don't got to run 2 guys at him. They believe that they can lock him up with just Amon Thompson. We'll see what happens there. But it's got to be, somebody has got to raise their hand and say, all right, I will pick up the scoring load. Or that's what scares me about this series, Ev, is that if we were to use the last couple of games as a measuring device going forward, is that the Warriors clearly need somebody consistently. And you know where I'm going to go with this. And by the way, when we get into Kuminga talk, here's the mandate. We're just going to limit it to one section. I don't know whether you want to do it in the next half hour or coming up at 11 o'clock, whatever, because we know it can dominate the 3 hours. So we're going to let everybody know beforehand. We're going to talk Kuminga, but we're going to do it for, a half an hour, and that's it, and we're moving on if we do it at all. But yeah, I truly believe that somebody else has got to be a consistent scorer for the Warriors, and it's not something we haven't said all year long. What really fascinates me is I really want to sort of get into Moody and Podziemski because, well, first of all, let me just ask you how you think they played in the 2 sort of biggest games of the year, namely Los Angeles and, of course, Memphis in the playing game.
I thought they played well against the Clippers. I do not think they played very well against the Grizzlies. The difference between Pods and Moody, both of them contribute when they're not scoring, and that's what you have to do if you're a starter. Yeah. But Moody, I think, does it more visibly because he's literally guarding the other team's best player. Like he guards Ja Morant pretty much every second that he's out there on the floor. And, for example, he had a big stop at the end of the half and blocks Morant and a big one-on-one possession. Podziemski's a little harder to gauge because when he's not making shots, there isn't that stoppage. I guess the kind of clear thing that he does well. He just does a little bit of everything. Like he'll rebound, he moves the ball, but if he's not hitting shots, he does not help you as much as I think Moses Moody can when he's not making shots. So I think overall Pods is probably a little more in the limelight, and they're going to need him to play big because I think he has the ability to maybe be their 3rd leading scorer in this series. But I think both of those players, much like first-time, big-time contributors, especially down the stretch in big games, I thought they were pretty inconsistent.
You know what jumped out at me is that as much as we talk about the Warriors as being this veteran-laden team in the postseason, where you don't want to take on the Golden State Warriors. And it's certainly true when you talk about their big 3. Battle-tested, doesn't get anybody better when you talk about postseason play than obviously Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry. And, of course, Draymond Green's got his battle scars. But they're also young. And you may have said this, or might have been Grandy that just said, the Warriors are also young. They are. And I didn't realize this. But I'll tell you this from what it is that I saw in the playing game in particular. The stage was too big for those guys. Moody and Podziemski weren't even looking at the rim at times. I've never seen Podziemski look to hand off to Butler as frequently as he did in that game. And that's exactly what it is that I was talking about all year long, where you can't simulate what it's like when your butt cheeks get a little tight in these big games and there's no tomorrow. You can act with all sorts of bravado like that of Podziemski, but when you're in that situation, things take over. And that stage was clearly too big for Moody. Moody did not want to shoot. And Podziemski, we've seen Podziemski as demonstrative as he can be and just, clear aside, I got this guy. That Podziemski was not evident. And why? Because these are young basketball players, which sort of gets back to why I think Houston, as well as OKC, will struggle because they have more than just 2 of those young players that they're going to rely on.
Yeah, I don't know if I phrase it exactly like they're young too, but I think people just assume that the Warriors, because of their three best players and it seems like tens of thousands of playoff games that they've played, figuratively speaking, they also have a lot of guys that just haven't been in these moments before. And two of them start.
They're counting on.
Two of them start.
Yeah.
Like that's the biggest difference. It's like if you have a couple players, for example, the Nuggets a couple years ago when they won the championship, all of their starters had played, for the most part, in big games. KCP was their shooting guard. He had been and won an NBA Finals. Granted, it was in the bubble, but with the Lakers. Aaron Gordon had played in playoff games before. Jokic, obviously, they had been knocking at the door. Christian Brown was a rookie, but he was more of a 6th, 7th, or 8th man. He was giving them contributions, but they weren't relying on him. The Warriors, while Curry, Butler, primarily those two, and to Draymond Green to some extent, they're going to, as those three players go, the Warriors go. But they need Brandon Podziemski and Moses Moody to grow up really fast. And that's a difficult thing to do. And it's also a lot to ask. For example, if in game 1 or game 2 in Houston, if those two guys, I don't know, have a game like they did in the play-in where Podziemski's, 1 for 5 from 3, can't knock down a shot. Moses Moody, to your point, is not really shooting the ball. I wouldn't be shocked at all. And it isn't as if we should expect these players to all of a sudden transform into the grown version of themselves. They've played well down the stretch of this season, but there's going to be some big boy moments in this playoff series. And Pods and Moody, specifically those two, as starters, I don't know what I'm going to get. And that does give me some pause.
They're young basketball players, and they've never been in games like this, especially when it comes to Podziemski. You got to throw Quentin Post in there as well. Though Quentin Post he looked a little bit more comfortable than the other two.
Not against the Rockets 2 Sundays ago. That's the thing, too. The good thing about this series, I feel like, is points are a premium, but the Warriors aren't going to have to score 120 every game to win. In fact, they've won a couple of games this season against the Rockets where it's been 99-93, which, for all intents and purposes, in 2025 might as well be a Detroit Pistons, Indiana Pacers game from the mid-2000s where they're scoring 68 points a game. This is going to be a bloodbath. And so, you don't have to worry about a guy going for 30 every single night, but you are going to need players to step up. And I don't know. I would like to think that someone like Post can play big minutes in this series, but the Rockets they get in, speaking of butt cheeks, they get in your grill, man. They get in your jersey, and literally, whether it's grabbing off the ball or not, and especially when the calls aren't going to be as frequent in the postseason, they have an ability to really defend at a level that I'm not sure many other teams in the West do.
They're so good, especially at that wing position, and they are really, really good defensively. And what's scary is sort of this new combo that they stumbled on late in the season when they go big and they get Adams in there with Şengün, and then they can just muck it up. The issue with Houston is going to be, and I think you guys have talked about this all week, I'm sure, is that when they get into a half-court set, they're just not very good. And obviously they don't have a go-to, although Jalen Green can be good at times. So what that means is that the Warriors, the one thing that the Warriors have to stay away from, again, if I'm reiterating a lot of stuff you guys have talked about, tough, because I haven't been here. I haven't had a live mic, so bear with me. And this has haunted the Warriors throughout the entire career. And this, we understand when you play this chaotic style of play, there's going to be turnovers, and especially when you have the motion offense, you sometimes have to thread the needle. Turnovers are going to be part of it. You cannot turn the ball over against the Houston Rockets. You can't have those 18 to 23 turnovers, as they're often prone to do, because that throws everything out the window. Because, yes, Houston struggles in the half court, but if you get them in transition and get those young boys going up and down the floor, they're going to carve you up. And the only way that you can put them in motion or help them is by those sort of lazy passes. Now, a lot of that, again, it's just by structure that you're going to live and die by that sword when you're trying to make passes in crowded areas. I get it when there's cutters and maybe you are a second slow on it. But some of those, the baseball passes that both Draymond and Steph love, that full court pass that maybe 30% of the time gets there, or some of the things that Steph does, it's a little nonchalant. We know he has a great handle, but when he wants to throw it with one hand, his left hand cross court and it gets picked off, you have to. And they know this, but that is going to be one area that is going to benefit Houston. It can swing the series because that will give them offensive opportunities.
You have to assume anytime there's a turnover, it's a dunk the other way. Like it's almost like in high school. You're going up against a team that is uber athletic. If you give that ball up, it's 2 points the other way, and you just can't do anything about it. So live ball turnovers and limiting those turnovers is going to be massive. And that's one of the reasons why it's not to say, like, if the Warriors are going to navigate a path to the postseason, I think they've laid one out for themselves. It's very beneficial. In a series like this, I don't know about you, Dan. I feel like this has to be Jimmy Butler's series because possessions are going to determine who wins this game. Who gets the most shots on goal? Who has the most chances? And Jimmy Butler takes care of the ball better than anybody else has a high usage rate on the Warriors. He's the only one to me that really looks like he values the basketball on this team, especially in crunch time. And so it's not to say that, if Steph can't be great in this series and give you a few or maybe all big games, Draymond's going to be important defensively. But in terms of taking care of the ball, whoever does that better over the best of seven is going to win, in my opinion. And the person who prioritizes the basketball more than anything, it feels like in the world when he's on the floor, is Jimmy Butler. That's why I think that he has to be the best player in this series for them.
The other way Houston gets points is off of offensive rebounds. They do it better than anybody in the NBA.
Yeah, they're number one.
And so sometimes when we have a tendency to just look at this on paper and saying they're not good in a half-court set, well, it really doesn't matter if you're shooting 32% from three. If you're getting 5 cracks at it on one possession, I like your chances. And so, again, when it comes to Adams, when it comes to Şengün, and when it comes to Tari Eason and company, and these guys want to go big and they get offensive rebounds and they scrap, it may not be pretty. It may not be just ISO for Jalen Green and get to the hoop and he's going to be our leading scorer. It's not going to be that obvious, but they're going to reset the 24 on numerous occasions. And so that's always been, it's nothing new for the Warriors, right? You got to put a body on guys, and obviously they're going to be smaller. At some point, Ev, they got to stop this, especially as you get older, and just go and get an athletic big, right? Like, I know that they just subscribe. It's like we do it a different way, and they're almost cocky to the point, well, listen, we won a title with Kevon Looney. I know. Make it easy on yourself. Dallas has got like 5 of them. OKC's got like 10 of them. Go get Gafford. Go get somebody so that you don't have to hit your head up against this wall every single year.
Can we get one before 6 o'clock tomorrow?
I don't think so. You got one in TJD.
There he is. There he is. Yeah. Look, and actually, this is a part of the postseason that I personally like, the questions, right? Why is this guy going to go? Why is this guy going to get ticked? Why is he going to be important? All of these will have answers by the end of game 1. But if the Warriors lose the game, well, we come in the next day. What could they have done? Could have been more TJD. The Warriors are who they are. And you're right. Trace Jackson Davis is a big, and he's athletic and all the rest. The Warriors are going to win and lose with their small ball. They always have, and they always will. I know that they've had traditional centers in the past that have played more than, say, Looney or TJD when he was starting at the beginning of the season, which feels like eons ago at this point. But the Warriors 5 of Curry, Pods, Moody, Butler, Green. That's their best 5. And they are going to win or lose a playoff series with those guys on the floor. Not to say that there can't be some minutes for Post or maybe a Buddy Hield shooting it well. Gary Payton II has been closing some games instead of Pods or Moody, who have struggled in these sort of late, big regular season or play-in scenarios. But for people that are hoping for the Warriors to go big against Houston, I don't see it.
Yeah, but I would say that every championship run or all the good Warrior teams had those substitutions or those iterations of West, of Pachulia, of Bogut, who would come in and give you these valuable minutes. And yes, when it came to the beginning or the ending or closing of games, it would be Steph and that small lineup. But being able to go big and match girth with girth and protect the rim at stages throughout the course of a game, I think is when the Warriors were at their very best. And they struggle with that now more than ever before. So I think it's more precarious now than it's ever been. But yeah, I would agree with you that yes, the remedy hasn't changed. It's small ball, and it always has been. But there has always been room and the influence of bigs to play a significant role in that success.
Yeah, and I think the way that they use their bigs is interesting to me because like Quentin Post is the tallest player on the team. He's their most, I guess, he's 7 feet. But he probably plays away from the basket. It feels like he's getting more down into the paint, getting nitty and gritty, but he's a perimeter-based player. Like, I want him on the three-point line shooting. I don't necessarily need him crashing the boards in the offensive glass. And their best, like, against Memphis, I know we didn't really talk much about that game, but one of the things that I found really interesting about their strategy and they still got out-rebounded by, I think, by like almost 15. But one of the strategies they used early in that game, instead of trying to go up and just grab the rebound, Draymond Green was just tipping it out. Like, he's not going to out-jump a 7'3" player or Jaren Jackson Jr., and so in order to neutralize that, he would just tip the ball out towards the free throw line, and then Curry or some other perimeter player would come in and scoop it up. Like, their leading rebounder was Steph, only because he got like 3 or 4 tips early in that game from Draymond Green. And so that's kind of one of the ways that I think that even though they're a smaller team,
if you get a tip, it's not considered a rebound, is it?
No, but it should be like a controlled tip. Like, Draymond's clearly just guiding the basketball to one of his teammates.
Yeah, but here's what I would say to that is that you're right, but you have to expend so much energy doing that. It's a lot easier if you're just 6'11", snaring and going. If you've got to expend that much energy in a 7-game series, for one game, a playing game, sure, but if you're giving up that much height and that much weight and you got a volleyball and you got a tip to keep it alive, and if you're Jimmy Butler, you just got to rotate, put a body on a guy, and work your arse off every single game towards the latter part of that series, I think it really takes a toll. I think it's a lot easier just to go out and get yourself a rim protector. I know, what is it with Kerr and you guys? Like, it's okay. It's not going to be the end of small ball. Just make it a little easier on yourself.
Yeah, but you need the bigs in this system to be able to do multiple things. I mean, I know he's not big or like traditionally tall, but Draymond Green's one of the best rim defenders in the league. He's just one of the best overall defenders in the league. And I know he's 6'6", but just because you're not a true 7-footer doesn't mean you can't play both sides as far as the line and in.
But at 35, 36 years of age to do that for a 7-game series, I know he can do it. It's just asking a lot physically.
No, and they've chosen in recent memory to sort of go with, I mean, Trace Jackson-Davis last year in the second round, but, I mean, they've drafted 2 bigs, 2 centers in the first 2 drafts of Mike Dunleavy Jr. You know, they just haven't got a rim runner. Like,
TJD can be that guy. Why are you out on TJD? I never understand you sometimes.
I don't understand your fixation on players that can't finish around the rim.
No, that's true, but
like, you love Trace Jackson-Davis. I'm not saying he's a stiff, but I don't expect him to play in this series. And as we've laid the groundwork for across this show, we will take calls, but in general, we will not be talking about players that aren't going to play much in this series, and Trace Jackson-Davis is one of them, unless they get into foul trouble or something. But also Zach Edey. Zach Edey stunk on Tuesday.
I was just having fun at your expense because I know you didn't like him.
Yeah, no. But, dude, if you're 7'3", you cannot go 4 for 11 when you don't shoot a shot outside of the paint.
Like, why was he playing so much?
I don't know. Maybe does someone have the answer? I thought they got rid of Taylor Jenkins and then they would get rid of Zach Edey. But they live and die with this dude. Who, by the way, they did punch their ticket for the right to get their ass kicked by OKC in the first round. So shout out to them. Klay Thompson's season, unfortunately, comes to a premature end last night. But I don't know. Like, that's the thing about it. If you're watching the Memphis Grizzlies, they have all the size in the world. And it just goes to show, just because you have a true 7-footer does not necessarily mean you're going to be a physically dominant team. You know, like Şengün he's 6'11". I guess he's not a true 7-footer.
They drafted that guy.
There's a lot of guys they should have drafted, Dan. Oh, or my guy last night. I know they lost, but you see Enekwa Okongwu?
Oh, God, yeah.
He's a animal, man.
Yeah,
that guy inhales everything. Also, not a true 7-footer.
It doesn't have to be a 7-footer. And I go back to the trade deadline last year when P.J. Washington and Gafford was right there. I mean, you could have got Gafford. They had to give up Chris Paul, but who cares? In retrospect, he walked for nothing.
Who, by the way, played all 82 games this year.
I know, that's amazing.
There was a... Oh.
He's too old.
No, he's not, because he's still active. But there was... Oh, it was against the Spurs. That's right. He played really well against the Spurs. I actually thought he played better than Pods in that game. But before the game, there was a reporter who asked her, like, Chris Paul's 85 years old, and he's played 81 games. There's been some rumors about his retirement. Do you think he's going to go, and how would you characterize his career? And Steve Kerr goes, well, number one, I don't think he's done playing. He doesn't look like he wants to finish playing for quite some time. And I will not sit here and eulogize Chris Paul's career. He's 39 years old and has probably got like 5 years left.
By the way, speaking of San Antonio, shout out to Greg Popovich, who he passed out or fainted at dinner the other night and so had to be ushered to emergency once again, but apparently is okay. Obviously recovering from a stroke from a couple of months back. Speaking of San Antonio, you know they're going to get Cooper Flagg. Now you just know that's going to end up that way. It's going to be Cooper Flagg and Wembanyama.
The league doesn't want him in Washington?
No.
Or the other horrible team this season? Is it Washington or Charlotte? I mean, keep Cooper Flagg in North Carolina.
Yeah, can you imagine Cooper and Wembanyama?
I don't want to. It'd be a pretty fearsome tandem. Nevertheless, they also got De'Aaron Fox coming back next year.
Yeah, so it gives you an excuse to go back to North Carolina to see him?
Yeah, exactly. That's Dan's team, by the way. Dan will take any young, nasty, gnarly, up-and-coming squad around the NBA. He's already claimed the Spurs. All right, when we come back on the other side, I do want to get people in the conversation. 888-957-9570 is the number. Evan Giddings, Dan Devone on Warriors this week. What do you think is going to be the difference in the series? The Warriors start Game 1 of the Western Conference first round against the Houston Rockets tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, all right here on 95.7 The Game. What's the difference? Talk to me, people.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
Well, everyone has to give a big sign of appreciation to our own Dan Devone. He is struggling right now. I mean, I'm not going to say that he's the 37-year-old Curry, plays on a back-to-back, 40 minutes here, 42 minutes there, but dude, you got in at 3 a.m. this morning. You're still...
It was late. It was just...
Here for the masses?
The red eye was delayed out of New York City, but, a little dip in the water does all sorts of, there's health benefits, and it sort of revitalizes you.
You still got in the Pacific today?
Oh, yeah, no doubt. I had to, man. I had to. You had to. It's sort of like, God, who was that? There was Aaron Pryor. Look at Aaron Pryor. And he was in a fight, I want to say, against Alexis Arguello. And this is sort of the golden age of boxing. And he had this guy in his ring, and one of his handlers, his corner man, was saying, here, take a little juice, take a little juice. This guy's name was Panama Jack or Panama Joe. I think he got kicked out of boxing because...
That's not a real person.
There was that was his nickname, but he had like this little jug that had an X on it. And every time Aaron Pryor in the late rounds was sort of tiring and withering, he would take a swig of whatever this was, man. A little scotch, whatever it was, would just like perk him up and got him through. That was sort of me jumping in the bay today.
I broke my back.
Well, broke open a bottle is what he did. Let's break open the phone lines.
Let's go.
888-957-9570. Warriors This Week. Evan Giddings, Dan Devone, Steven Risotto behind the glass. Scott's in Berkeley. Scotty, what's up?
Good morning, gentlemen.
How we doing?
All right. Panama Lewis.
Oh, my God. You are good. You, my man, are good. And I'm assuming you didn't have enough time to look that up.
No. Panama Lewis had two issues against him. One was the bottle. The other one, I think there was a fight, and I can't remember it, and he was accused of de-padding his fighter's gloves.
Yes. Very good knowledge. And I want to say that he had his license pulled. Yeah, and because of taking the padding out, the opponent got seriously injured, I want to say.
Right. That's right.
Wow.
The discussion about the big has always kind of been one of my, I won't call it a pet peeve, because I've always said that Kerr has taken a lot in his coaching from both Popovich and Phil Jackson. And Phil, in the second three-peat, his main starting center was always Luke Longley. And there were always complaints about Longley. He wasn't a great defender, yada, yada, yada. What he was a good passer, and you ran him out there for 7 minutes at the start of the start of each half. This was sort of the issue this was sort of the necessity of both Bogut and Zaza. Again, guys who could, take up space, occasionally stick, in Zaza's case especially, occasionally stick an 8 to 12 footer. But they were both. But all three of them were very good passers out of the paint. And and again, when you run kind of that motion triangle hybrid that Steve runs, it's you've got to have a post who could move the ball. And then of course the thing was about Phil was that once he would pull Longley, he would go faster. Of course, the big difference with Phil was that he had Kukoc.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you were playing small theoretically, but then again, you had a 6'11" guy out there. I was looking at the series and I was saying, did Ime already give the series away in a way after he talked about how they want to beat up Steph? Because it's like you're all I have my issues about any guy who would decide to dip on Nia Long, but I kind of look at him and I go, why would you start saying something like that in public before the start of a series? Because it's almost like you're almost automatically challenging the referees to start calling stuff. And how do you trust any team that's going to run Dillon Brooks out there for a series?
Well, these are all good questions, Scotty. Thanks for the call. First of all, it has me thinking about, he's right about Nia Long. Like, have you seen that the Knicks are asking for Anne Hathaway and Suni Lee to be at every single home game for the playoffs because OG Anunoby plays better or played a really good game when I think Lee was courtside and Anne Hathaway was also behind the scores table. It's like, yeah, I wouldn't be able to walk out on Anne Hathaway, which is what Ime Udoka essentially did. But that doesn't take away from his basketball acumen.
Watch out for Detroit, by the way. Go ahead.
The Pistons? That's my team. You can't claim my teams.
Saying, the Knicks and the Pistons. The Knicks haven't been good this year.
You know, I love me some JB Bickerstaff. Also, a kid I went to high school with is their beat writer for the Pistons right now. Shout out Hunter Patterson.
By the way, hey, Pasta, is he Scott again?
Scott and Berkeley.
Scott and Berkeley.
What was he last week? Was he the same name?
He's been Stats in Berkeley. He's been Scott in Berkeley.
So Scott. All right. I was going to say we can just officially change him to Alias. Like, let's just give him his name is now Alias because he was changing it from week. But he stands out because he clearly knows his stuff.
He's from Berkeley,
take it a step further and just give him a segment.
Yeah.
Yeah, call in at 9:30 every single Saturday, Scotty. We got you.
Scott is awesome.
I mean, look, like they haven't really needed, I think, a true traditional big man. Like that's probably why they swung and missed on one a few years ago with James Wiseman because they were trying to remake the wheel. But with Kerr's system and to his point, Popovich and Jackson's system, you don't need a ball dominant center. You need someone that understands what their role is, how to get guys open, move the ball, more importantly, and not be a complete liability on defense. And I think they have a few of those guys.
Who?
Kevon Looney and Quentin Post.
I think Quentin Post is a stretch 5. Kevon Looney, I'll give you, but Kevon Looney, again, man, he's got that Fred Sanford walk, and he's like 28 years old. Nothing against Kevon. He's been through a lot.
He's been in the league for 28 years.
I know. It's just, why not just invest? I know that there isn't a Derek Lively in every draft, and you don't have that draft positioning, but I'm not talking about a 7-foot center. I'm just talking about an athlete who can protect some of the other bigs in this league.
Well, I think they would have taken Derek Lively, but I think he was selected before Pods, right?
Yeah, no, he went, I want to say he was top 10.
Yeah, and Pods was 14th, 17th. Yeah. So, I mean, like, sometimes they're just not there. And again, you can't just go get any big man. We discussed this in the first segment. I don't think that all 7-footers are created equal. And while there are a pretty good crop of, rim running bigs, Lively is one of them. The guy last night from Miami, Khalil Ware, he's pretty good in his rookie season for the Heat. But I don't think they really grow on trees. And also, you just have to, again, what we're finding out, and I think what we have found out over the course of 10 years with Steve Kerr is you have to be able to fit. And not everyone fits in this. I think QP is a great fit for this system because he's a heady player and he's certainly got his flaws. And I think some of them might be exposed during the playoffs, but he can shoot the hell out of it. And that's his job. He understands his role. And I think the Warriors, what Jimmy Butler did was just define everyone's role. And that's why they're such a better team than they were 2 months ago.
Now, I know you have to fit the Warriors' way, but are we beginning to see that morph a little bit? Are we beginning to see that change a little bit? Because is Steve Kerr recognizing that I have got to move with the times a little bit? Because they never went ISO ball, but they sure as hell do now with Jimmy Butler.
Well, they did with Durant. I mean, Durant was one of, if not the best isolation scorers in the game. They just also, of course, moved the ball really well with Steph and Clay around them. They were so good. But you're right. Yeah, Jimmy Butler is more of an ISO player. And I think that's again one of the reasons why I said in the first segment, I think he has to be the best player in the series for them to win because the Rockets, they just disrupt everything off the ball. They do not allow Steph or Buddy or maybe Pods, but these shooters who just run around and try and create space by coming off of screens, they'll just grab you. And they'll force the ref to make calls, which we saw a couple Sundays ago, they won't in abundance. So the Rockets are not going to let the Warriors, their motion offense just run wild.
Yeah, this is what's so fun about this. And if you get into coaching and the X's and O's and one team trying to scheme and the other team trying to counter that. So we saw what it is that Ahmed Thompson was able to do to Steph Curry, where he had just the one field goal and 3 points. you know that's not going to happen again, right? Like there's an asterisk next to this game for Steve Kerr as well as Steph Curry, which is scary for the Rockets because if you think that's a remedy going forward, good luck. Steph has put a circle around Amen Thompson and saying, listen, I like you, kid, but I'm going to bust your butt, and that's just what I do. But Ime Udoka is not going to change anything. He's going to face guard Steph. He's going to try and take him out. And what's so fun, the first thing I want to see is how is Steve going to counter that? Because you know he's got something, whether it's coming off of some double, triple pin downs or screening hard or somebody setting a screen that you never saw do it before, whatever it is, whatever action they get Steph in, you may have never seen the entire season. This is what the playoffs, when you have one team and you have like 10 days to focus on this one team in a 7-game series, is what is so fun when you get into sort of the tactical part of the game, and especially when it comes to Steve Kerr. And this is where I think the Warriors also have another advantage. He does it as well as anybody. Like Steve Kerr has something up his sleeve, guaranteed tomorrow night. What it is, I don't know, but he knows that he's got to counter what it is that he saw the last time Amen Thompson was in the face of one Steph Curry.
And sometimes maybe it's something simple. It could just be as simple as Steph brings the ball up, instead of coming off the ball. But this is where you also see another side of Steve Kerr.
Yeah, I just got to tell you don't want to do that with Amen Thompson. Like, when that dude, somebody was charting this. I don't think there's an official stat for it. When they talk about turning a player when they got to reverse their dribble, nobody turned a guy because he picks you up 94 feet. He turned a guy like 6 times before he got to the timeline. And apparently it hadn't been done in like 15 years. That's what he does, man. He gets on your dribble hand and he's turning you and he's turning you. You don't want Steph with the ball. He's going to have to exhaust so much energy with that he's not little, but that Amen Thompson who can run all day at age, 21, 22.
Well, he's also just going to be attached to him at the hip from the moment.
Yeah, that's true.
Like it doesn't matter really what you do. That's how good of a defensive player I think this kid already is at age 22. Like he's going to be on him like white on rice the moment that he's on the court. He's going to guard him in the tunnel if he could. Like that's just who he is. So I don't know what the adjustment's going to be, but my point is this is also where you see a different side of Kerr. You really see that kind of that basketball junkie, that like maniacal side of him that he has and shown as a player. But it doesn't come out because he's such a nice guy at the podium. And, he's making political statements with his Harvard basketball shirt, and he's well spoken. But at his core, like he's a MFer, man. Like Steve Kerr is such a competitive dude, and it comes out in different ways. But the postseason, where you hear him talk about adjustments and matchups and X's and O's, like that's his crack. I mean, that is his narcotic. It is basketball, and that's why it's the best time of the year.
For those of you that can go back to the days of Bill Walsh, when I was a child growing up, you give Bill Walsh extra time to prepare for one game, whether he's putting Guy McIntyre in the backfield or whatever it is that he's going to do for a Super Bowl. You give him 2 weeks to prepare for a Super Bowl, guaranteed Bill Walsh is going to out-scheme the opposing coach. And I think the Warriors have that advantage. When you talk, and not to take anything away from Udoka, you know what I like about Ime? And I think you and I are on the same page because he seems to be public enemy number one, which is part of the reason why I like that series. You need the heel, right?
He is, but I also think he's equally respected by the Warriors, by their players. Like I don't think you'll hear Draymond Green talk about Ime Udoka the way he talks about like a Taylor Jenkins or some other lesser coach.
And what I like what it is that Udoka is doing with his team, very similar to your man Bickerstaff out in Detroit. Mm-hmm. Nobody respects us. Nobody thinks we belong here. It's us against the world. Every foul call, I guarantee you, the league wants to see the Warriors and the Lakers. All right? The refs don't want us in this thing. Nobody respects you. They don't think you're a legitimate 2 seed. This is a team that's synonymous with championships. Go out and they are going to be fueled. And it's almost to the point where Detroit as well as Houston, that's why they're so nasty. I truly believe it starts at the top, that Udoka cultivates that sort of energy with his team. And one of the reasons why they're so successful.
Yeah, they kind of embody, I think, his, and a lot of teams take on the, the character of their coach. But Udoka, it feels like that's who he wants as a basketball team. Like the 5 players on his floor, they're all different and they all have their strengths and weaknesses. But it's funny that they're in the same city. But I keep thinking about watching the Houston Cougars, the basketball team this year in the NCAA tournament. Like Kelvin Sampson is that kind of coach. You see the 5 players that are swarming. They all run. They're fast as hell. They make these hockey line changes. They get in your jersey. They curse at you. It's almost like they're playing a different sport, but they drag you into the mud. And that's the way the Houston Rockets play. And they're young, and they're inexperienced enough to not know any better. And that's what we were talking about, how Pods and Moody are inexperienced, and you're not necessarily sure what you're going to get in big games. That can also work in a positive fashion for both sides. But in regards to the Rockets, it's like, I don't know how Jalen Green's going to play. I don't know how Şengün's going to react. But what I do know is they're going to try and beat the hell out of you. And if this series gets deeper and deeper, especially after this first 3-game set where you have 2 days off between game 1 and game 2, 2 days off between game 2 and game 3, when the series condenses and you go every other day, that's also where I could see Ime Udoka saying, we're going to run these old guys into the ground. We're gonna make sure that by game 5 or game 6, if we can get there, that this team is toast and they got no legs in the final 5 minutes of the fourth quarter.
Or beat them into the ground, because that's who he was as a player as well.
Yeah.
When he was with San Antonio and Popovich, he was the enforcer. He was a 4. That's how he got into the league. That's how he got run, is exactly what it is that his team is doing. And that's defense and just enough offense.
888-957-9570. Warriors this week. Evan Giddings, Dan Devone with you, breaking down the Houston Rockets of the Golden State Warriors. 2-7 in the first round of the Western Conference playoffs. Let's go to Chico. Talk to our guy, Frank. Frankie, good morning. What's going on, man? How you doing?
First off, great show today. You guys are on point. Even some of the callers had some really great points as well. The comparison, and I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. The comparison to the Bulls, though, I found that really interesting. I know it's not the sexiest answer, but I think there's a real reason why the Warriors go out and get a particular type of center. I know as fans we have expectations for a certain type of player, but if you look at even the Last Dance and the parallels of the Bulls, when they made that, when Krause was considering to go after Kemp, as long as if you watch that and you looked at the way the players reacted to that, as long as we have Draymond Green and Steph Curry, they're going to want to win and play a particular way because that's the way they won. And you get a center who goes after rebounds, sets good screens, passes the ball. They know what they need to do. And I just think that the Warriors have shown you consistently, even with Looney playing the majority of the minutes, they can win this way, especially with Jimmy Butler now giving them a new element in isolation. And I do think that caller had a great point about what is Ime thinking. Like, I guarantee you this, Steph will get 3 more free throws a game because of that statement by Ime. Okay, that's all I had to say. You guys are awesome.
Appreciate that, Frank. Yeah, I think the other part of it, too, is Ime realizes there's less adjustments for his team to make. Like, it's really just going to be about how hard they play and is that level of play good enough to beat the Warriors. Like, I think we're going to find out, again, also because there's the first few games of this series it's set up. The Warriors have 4 days of rest. They get rest the first few games. Like, if the Warriors lose this series, it's because the Rockets are just simply a better basketball team. I don't think it's going to be because of fatigue.
I can just tell you from spending time out on the East Coast that what Ime Udoka says and his attitude specifically against the Golden State Warriors, he represents a lot of people. And it's just sort of who we are, where we hate on people that are good, that are handsome like that of a Steph Curry, that are good people, that have a good family life, whether we're envious or what have you. When Udoka says they're a bunch of crybabies, quit crying, and wants to knock off the pretty boy Steph Curry. I am just telling you, over the last 10 years, that whether it's New York or the Eastern Seaboard, there's a lot of people that believe Ime Udoka is the next and like sort of the savior. And people love what it is that he represents, that don't even have any skin in this game. That the one guy that's not afraid to say you're a crybaby and we're here to take you out. It's time for the new generation. I am telling you, I'm not one of those, but he represents a huge contingent in this country.
But one thing that is dangerous about that is, and it reminds me a little of the Memphis series a couple of years ago, not just because Dillon Brooks is on the team, but when you play that game, when you start to call the Warriors crybabies and these pretty boys and they're jump shooters, you don't realize the kind of nastiness that it can extract. Like, the Warriors can get down and dirty too. Kerr is a basketball junkie. Curry is the petty king. Draymond Green does not mind getting his hands dirty in a postseason series. In fact, I think he relishes that challenge. Jimmy Butler is someone that we've seen go head-to-head with a Grant Williams, and that will win those kind of one-on-one game-within-the-game battles. The Warriors, I think this series is going to show us how nasty they can get, how nasty they can be. And even at their elder age, some of those young players too. Quentin Post has got a chip on his shoulder. He doesn't mind talking to LeBron James or getting into it with other teams. So the Warriors, I know that they may not on paper look as physical or as daunting as a Houston Rockets team, and they certainly don't have that Ime Udoka sort of physicality or swagger. But I'm very curious to see how they match the Rockets' nastiness.
Oh, the Warriors are not soft.
But a lot of people portray them as soft.
This team is not soft, and they get after people as well. And that's why this is going to be so much fun. Something has to give here. And I have no idea what's going to happen, but I feel pretty comfortable that Draymond will be in the eye of that storm, that Udoka, if those two square off, Kerr may get, who knows, with Dillon Brooks, with all these characters, Şengün and Draymond, you got Steven Adams and Draymond. It's going to be entertainment for sure. Let's get to some of these calls.
All right, let's do it. 888-957-9570 is the number. Chris is in Sonoma. Chris, what's going on, my man? Good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Awesome.
Beautiful. Glad to hear that. Difference in the series to me is you hit it, the coaching, and secondarily that leads to the way the officials call physicality. But to me, fellas, Udoka is the epitome of false hustle. Like, there is a line that is not to be crossed, and that is, especially in the NBA, coaches talking to the opposing players and challenging them. And I think that guy lacks character and integrity for sure. And I think he will be completely flummoxed by the way the Warriors counter his false hustle mentality that we're going to beat you up. This so reminds me of Bill Walsh's 49ers when they were accused of being the wine and cheese crowd. And you hit it earlier with Guy McIntyre in the backfield. I don't like Udoka. There's very few coaches that I would say that about. And I think he just is too full of himself. So maybe he should put on a uniform and go out and tangle with the Warriors and see what happens. I'm serious, man. The guy just irks me. He does stuff that you're not supposed to do.
I got you, Chris. Well, he did go at Steph Curry. I think it was right before halftime of that last game where they played each other.
Well, I wouldn't say go after. The two just happened to be walking off and in the same vicinity. It's not as though he walked after Steph Curry and dressed him down.
No, but there's a purpose in where you're kind of taking a particular angle or route to the locker room. Like, I think he wanted to say something to Steph.
Oh, there's no doubt. And everything that the college has laid out is why this series is so much fun. You need a heel. You need someone to point it. What did he say in Scarface? What did Al Pacino say when he was eating lunch? You need me. You need to point a finger and say, there goes the bad guy. You need me. That's exactly what makes this series so much fun.
You say the series needs a Buddy Hield?
We already got one.
Yeah, I know. Chivano, where you at, buddy? Where you at, buddy? All right, we got to hit a break here, but I see your calls. Jan, Jimmy, Austin, we'll get to you on the other side. Warriors this week with Evan Giddings and Dan Devone. Come on, people. This is the best time of the year. Where are you at? Warriors, Rockets, tomorrow, game 1 of the first round of the series. We got your coverage right here on 95.7 The Game. We're back after this.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
I'm a sailor's pig, and I lost my leg. Climbing up the top sails, I lost my leg. I know the Warriors are shipping down to Houston. This is Warriors This Week with Evan Giddings and Dan Devone. Before we go any further and play some more Dropkick Murphys, happy early birthday to our producer.
Oh,
A1 Day 1, Steven Risotto, a.k.a. Pasta, turns
16.
Yeah, let me buy you your first beer on Tuesday. How about that, Steve?
If you're in Europe, you could be drinking beers at age 16.
Well, in just about anywhere, but
thank you
legally
guys,
in Europe.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, Steve, happy early birthday.
Happy birthday, buddy.
How old are you turning, seriously?
I will be turning 23 years young. So,
dude, I mean, like, I'm not that old. I'm in my Curry year, and he makes me feel like a fossil.
He's way ahead of the game, man. You're going to own this world. You're going to own this station, brother. I'll be working for you.
In the palm of your hands. Yeah, no, seriously, this industry, it's very Darwinistic. Adapt or die.
You don't have the guts to be
well,
what
you know
want
what's
to
funny
be.
is that you
need
guys
people like me. So say good night to the bad guy.
Thank you. That's Udoka. You need guys like that in this series.
it didn't come in time for the rejoin, but I was like, let's just drop it now.
That's pretty good. Is Udoka the bad guy in this series? Is he?
We have a few, which is
I
Dillon
know.
Brooks.
Take your pick.
If you're Houston,
it's Draymond.
you can't tell me that.
You don't think Steven Adams is going to have PTSD every single time he's walking up and down that floor?
But what? Let me ask you this. Is Steven Adams, because I've heard this from time to time, is thought of as a bad guy, and watch out for Steven Adams. He seems to be one of the most gentle giants, this smart, well-read Australian. I don't perceive him as being necessarily a quote-unquote enforcer bad guy.
No. I'm just saying when he's looking at Draymond, kicking him in the...
Certainly going back to the day, but it seems to be this perception of him as being a bad guy. I don't remember him. Is he a cheap shot guy? I'm serious.
No, he isn't. He strikes me, Steven Adams does, as the guy who doesn't start fights, but he ends them. Like, he's the mountain. And the reason why no one looks at him as a villain is because no one wants to step to him. Like, he's huge.
He's supposed to be pound for pound the strongest guy in the NBA.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Since the moment he's stepped in this league. All right, 888-957-9570 is the number. Evan Giddings, Dan Devone here with you on Warriors This Week. Austin's in San Jose. Austin, what's up, my man? How we doing? Good morning.
Happy Saturday, guys. Always a great show. Good to talk to you, Danny. Back from the East Coast, just like me. I was a little bit south of you in D.C. this week. So you said something earlier about folks outside of the Bay and how they feel about the Warriors. You absolutely nailed it. They're happy to have the teams that can finish their run and dynasty, if you will. They do not like the Warriors outside of the Bay Area. So I wanted to kind of, and it's funny, you listen to my buddies talk back in D.C., and they find different ways to kind of throw shade on Steph and what he's achieved, so it's still there. I wanted to talk about also a comment you made about the analogy with the new teams coming up like Houston and OKC and the old Warriors, original Warriors, and how Mark Jackson really motivated them and told them, hey, you guys are soft. You're perceived as soft. You don't play your pretty boys, told the Splash Brothers. And that's part of the reason why they had to have a guy like Draymond, because they needed an enforcer. Otherwise, they would have pretended to get pushed around. So I think it's a really good analogy. The third thing I wanted to say was Udoka. I kind of look at him a little different. I actually have a lot of respect for him. And Bickerstaff, I remember his dad, Bernie, who was a hell of a coach back in the day, coached the Wizards, Bullets, and had a great resume. So I think his son is following in his footsteps. But no, I think the young coaches, new coaches, are good for the league. I mean, Kerr's had achievement. He's done. I'm not as optimistic, Dan, about Kerr being able to flummox or outcoach Udoka as much as you. I think he's a hell of a coach. I think there's a lot of good coaches outside of Kerr. I think they handle their players differently because they have different types of players. So I think it's, we have to respect what they've done with what they've had. Maybe he turned around Houston pretty fast. If you really look at what they rebuilt the team, and they're back in the playoffs already after 2 years. So I think it's going to be a heck of a series. I expect it to go 6 at the least. We're going to find out. I think you talked about Steph being able to run through screens. I think that's true. But the strategy has to be to tire Steph out, man. I mean, he's got to do that for 6 or 7 games, and he's playing against guys that are 15, 16 years younger than him. So, I mean, old man didn't say that the age thing never loses. I got to see it, and then if we win that series, he's got to do it for another 7-game series. So I think that the age thing is going to play out at some point. I'm not sure where, but it's going to. Last thing, guys, I know you guys haven't talked about today, and I was traveling, but I'm curious as what the latest dialogue is about my buddy JK. I am very disappointed in what I'm hearing and what I've seen go down from a distance. I've read the thing by Kurtenbach, and it sounded really dire. I don't think it's fixable between the player and the team. Win or lose, I think the Warriors are going to have to deal with that in the offseason. I don't see JK returning to the Warriors, and frankly, I think he needs to go somewhere else, guys. I'll keep listening. Thanks.
Appreciate it, Austin.
Do we want to do?
I was going to say, do you want to do it now?
Or we can dedicate a segment to it.
Yeah, how about this? We'll do it at 10:30. There's a piece of sound from Kerr earlier this week that I think kind of explains everything. And, oh my God, is that Raymond Ritter? They do not want us to talk about Jonathan Kuminga, I'll tell you that. No, we'll do that at 10:30, and then and we'll kind of put a bow on it. Yeah, so Austin, we'll answer that. But as far as the rest of your points, obviously spot on as usual. Udoka is the reason why Houston is in the position they are. They have talented players. There's no doubt about that. But I was not we talked about this before the season. I wasn't very bullish on Houston because I honestly didn't give Udoka enough credit. I thought that this was just a young, rip and running team that was going to stumble into some wins because they're going to be able to punish teams in transition. They're a pretty good defensive group, but they don't really know what they're doing. Udoka has taken all these different, very raw pieces of clay and molded them into a formidable team. It won 52 games this year. And I think the Warriors have the upper hand in this series. I think they're going to win this series, and I'll tell you why in the final hour. But I absolutely have respect for the Houston Rockets. Like, the Warriors have to approach this series, I believe, with appropriate fear. And a big reason for that is their head coach.
Yeah, they might be a little ahead of schedule. This is a team that wasn't even in the playoffs, wasn't even in the play-in a year ago. And you could see that there were signs, and now they're the number 2 seed. So a lot of people feel that they're a little over their skis here.
Yeah.
But the thing about Udoka is that, let's not forget, this is a guy that, remember that dark February where he turned things around with the Boston Celtics and they went on that crazy run, and it was anchored primarily by what it is that Houston's doing. It was a buy-in defensively by the Celtics, who eventually would lose to the Golden State Warriors in the finals. And then, of course, the off-court behavior is the reason why he gets canned and let go in Boston. And what it is that he's done in Houston is real. And he has got his sort of players. The one thing, and I always say this, it's true for Steve Kerr, for any coach in the NBA today, I believe it's a players' league. And so, yes, Kerr is good at designing some plays, but usually if you're going to win, it's because your GM got you good players. And what you have to do as a coach is you have to get their respect. I don't think anybody's more respected in a different way than that of Ime Udoka. And the reason being is that Udoka is intimidating physically.
Hey, CC.
There isn't...
I'm trying to do a show.
There isn't a lot of... there's respect is garnered in different way when it comes to Steve Kerr. It's obviously because he's done it on so many different levels. He's been a winner. He's cerebral, and the players respond to him. Udoka, you don't challenge. Udoka is not somebody who you're going to say, I'm not buying into what it is you want me to do defensively, because there is an intimidating force that he may hit you. He's not going to, but physically the man is imposing. And the relationship he has with his team is real. I made the analogy between him and Bickerstaff out in Detroit, very similar, that our back's against the wall. People think we're ahead of schedule. Nobody respects us. You're not going to get the calls. The league and the world wants to see the Lakers and the Warriors in the next round. Prove everybody wrong. And that's exactly who he has following him to the mountaintop. So it's going to be very scary. But this is going to get down to, a lot of it is, when we get into the X's and O's, is, who's going to be their go-to guy when it comes to crunch time.
Well, I think also, too, because Udoka probably feels like that as a head coach. I know that he's been an NBA player, played in the league for about a decade with a lot of really good organizations. He was an assistant under Greg Popovich. But in terms of being a head coach, he's in also his kind of NBA infancy, relatively speaking. He's only coached 164 games. That's less than Quinn Snyder. Joe Mazzulla, Chauncey Billups. Like, he hasn't been a coach for an extremely long period of time. And so I think he's also trying to prove something in this series too. You know, Steve Kerr, by fact of all these head coaches dropping like flies recently, he's the third longest tenured head coach in the NBA behind Popovich, who obviously we send our well wishes towards, and Eric Spoelstra. But around the West, there's a lot of really good coaches. Tyronn Lue with the Clippers is a fantastic coach. Obviously, in Minnesota, I think Chris Finch has done a pretty good job. But Mark Daigneault.
Nobody's better than him. Well, I shouldn't say that, but he's good.
I mean, right now it looks that way. Daigneault's a sensational coach. The Grizzlies and the Nuggets obviously have interims, but J.J. Redick looks like he might have the goods in Los Angeles. You know, there's a lot of good head coaches in the well, giving them some credit.
Excuse me.
They've
lost my breakfast.
They've had a good year. You probably didn't have any. Right. Probably had some more green tea after.
You know, the one other thing about Udoka is that it's not just Steph. And again, he's trying to show to his team that, listen, the ambassadors of the sport, these nice guys, I'm not afraid of, nor should you. You know, he got kicked out of a game this year because he went after LeBron James.
Who?
Udoka.
Oh, Udoka. Yeah.
Udoka got in the face of LeBron James and said, "Get out of here." When LeBron came close to the bench and he dropped the B word on LeBron. And the ref ran him. Said, "Get out of here." He got kicked out of a game for going after LeBron James. Again, a lot of people love LeBron, but there's a huge contingent in the NBA and throughout the country that despise LeBron James and unfortunately they despise Steph Curry. And he's seen as the one guy, and he's a former player and he's a big dude that stands up to the big giant, and a lot of people love that.
888-957-9570 is the number. Evan Giddings and Dan Devona, Warriors this week. What's the difference in the series for you? What is the difference between the Warriors advancing to the second round or losing to the Houston Rockets? What's going to make that difference? Jan's in Mountain View. Jan, good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. Good morning to both of you. I just wanted I tried texting this yesterday and I didn't hear a response. But in that last game that we played against Houston here at Chase, I heard Bob Fitzgerald and Kalina Tsubuki talk about this when they were broadcasting the game, that there was a lot of hand checking going on and the referees weren't calling it. And I sure as heck hope that they're going to be on the outlook and they're going to be calling those fouls if it's appropriate, because confounded, that was inappropriate, and the way they were grabbing Steph around the waist on down and knocking him around. I just said, well, they've got to call that and they got to stop it. That was one reason. And I just said, well, there was 2 or 3 players that were doing it against them. And I think they also did it against Pods. I'm not certain, but that really turned the tables for me. And I said, well, I think they call it differently in the playoffs than they do during the regular season, but, and they're different officials, I understand. So I hope they're on the lookout for that. Thank you. That was it.
Appreciate it, Jan. Yeah, I mean, the Rockets are physical. Haven't people done this to Steph like his whole career?
Unfortunately, that's not gonna change now.
No,
it's the playoffs, and
in fact, it might get worse.
They're gonna eat their whistles. They're gonna let them play, and that just happens. That's just sort of playoff basketball, and the Warriors do it as well. The Warriors will grab. The Warriors will slip you an elbow when no one's looking. It's part of what's happening right now. It's basketball as we know at this time of the year.
It's also what makes the playoffs great. Like, the physicality gets ramped up. You really see who can play and who can handle that sort of high energy, high level type of play and who can. I mean, that's what's honestly separated the Warriors in a lot of these series, is that they can handle that level of physicality as they've gotten deeper into their playoff runs, and other teams will. That's why they're 4-time champs. So I understand where people are concerned about the referees. Although, in regards to, we were talking about coaching, I guarantee you, I think Steve Kerr has press availability today, or if he doesn't, it'll be pregame tomorrow. I guarantee you he says something about the off-ball grabbing, holding, phantom fouling, whatever you want to call it, on Steph. He will highlight that, and that's a chess move in and of itself because he is telling the referees what to look for before the game, and he's putting it on public. I can guarantee you he'll talk about it.
Oh, Udoka's already tipped his hand that we're going to do that.
Yeah,
we're going to knock you down, man.
It's what won the last time they played.
It's going to be a war. This is so much fun. And it's Houston again. And Steph loves to go off in Houston, the Toyota Center.
Yeah, he said that's one of his 5 favorite places to play. I wonder why.
And Orlando's another place he enjoys playing at. I don't know, sometimes it's just
Barclays Center.
The backdrop, lighting.
Atlanta is another one.
It's just there's certain things. Did you play pickup hoops when you were younger?
Yeah. I mean, you had like home court and
there's certain courts you would go to. You just like the rim, or you just liked whatever. There's just like, I don't know, oak trees in the background down at the Moscone where you used to play with your man Steiny. Or the worst is you would go to you get in a pickup game and they got double rims. They used to have that out at the Panhandle, I think. Shooting on double rims is like, oh, God, just mentally it gets into your head. Like nothing is going to fall.
Well, that's like, I mean, I equate it more to baseball. Like there's certain diamonds that I love playing at and certain places that I hated. Like Contra Costa Community College, we'd play summer ball there a lot. It was our home field. And as a pitcher, it's great because if you play night games there, the wind, it's like playing at, Old Candlestick Park. Like you cannot hit the ball over an outfielder's head. But as a hitter, I'm like, well, I'm just not going to get an extra base hit today. Like, there's no chance, there's no way we're going to have to win this game 2-1 in order to get over. Meanwhile, you play at Albany High School. It's got this real short porch in right field, and it's like 400 to left. So I'm going to try and gear everything to the right side and just pepper it off this 220-foot fence that's like 30 feet high. So I love playing there. But I don't know, Steph, there's also some places he doesn't like to play. Feels like he doesn't shoot very well in Los Angeles.
Yeah, and then a lot of it just becomes psychological too. So Steph is
even in a year 16.
If you think that Amen Thompson is going to do what it is that he did to Steph last time in this game 1, I'm willing to bet that is not going to happen. And the other thing about Amen Thompson is that for those of you that don't watch him frequently throughout the season and have him labeled as just a really good defender, he is an amazing athlete. And it's just a matter of time before this guy learns to shoot. He can shoot a little bit right now, but once he develops a 3-point shot and once he develops and harnesses his offensive game, watch out because his athleticism is off the charts. And it's not just that he's a defensive guy. This isn't just somebody who's relegated to that side of the ball. Who's the Kobe stopper back in the day? I mean,
Roger Bill.
Yeah, it's not just that. He's a guy that offensively, and a lot of these guys that can run again, which is why if you're the Warriors, and we say it every time, but especially now, do not turn the ball over excessively because if you put this team in transition, they're going to carve you up because all those boys can run for days and they can all throw down. And then that sort of nullifies the one advantage that you do have is that when they get into a half-court set, they have a hard time. They get really stuck because they can't produce points because they don't have that central figure. They don't have a Steph. They don't have an SGA. They got Jalen Green, but Green hasn't proven to the world yet or to the NBA world that he's that guy, at least at this point in his career. So don't put him in transition because if you think Amen Thompson is just good defensively, he'll get out and run and he will finish on you as well. He's a remarkable athlete is what he is.
He's also a really good passer. Like I think people don't give him enough credit as a playmaker. And really their season took off when he was forced to start. And I think it was due to injury, but then eventually he took, Jabari Smith's spot. Pretty much taking a lot of those minutes at the forward spot. It's like he's a complete player. And he's still quite raw because, to your point, he's not a great shooter yet, but he finishes. He can put it in both hands. He's got a package. He can dribble. Like he's a scary player, and that's someone that I know he's not going to be someone that drops 30 every game, but 18, 8 and 8 in a series from Amen Thompson is absolutely on the table, and he could be their best player. but on both ends of the floor too. So, he kind of reminds me, I know they're not a perfect comp, but like a little bit like a young Aaron Gordon. He's more wiry, he's faster, but he's just such a raw athlete. And now that Gordon has come into his own, he's a better shooter now. You can really see just how imposing his presence can be on a basketball game.
Yeah, a little more fluidity, I would say, than Aaron Gordon, who's just so muscle-bound.
He's a bully, but when he was in Orlando and was young and could just jump out of the gym, he also always gave the Warriors fits.
So I want to tease, we'll do JK for the next half hour.
Okay. Yeah. If you want to call in, talk about Kuminga, we'll do it for one segment only. Dan and I have some thoughts on it in regards to the first series for the Warriors in the playoffs. How about that?
Yeah, and I'm one of those. I'll just tease this as well, that I think I said this to you as much when I was in New York, and I said, is Kuminga hurt? Watching the game from afar. I don't know if you were there last Sunday against the Clippers.
Yeah.
And
no, not against the Clippers. I was there Tuesday.
I cannot believe that he didn't play. And I think I said to you simply, JK has to play. And I firmly stand by that. So,
and
I know.
I told you that Kerr was preparing us for. Now, I didn't think he was going to get a DMP, but I told you that his role was not going to grow. And I feel like
that last show,
he was setting the table for what he eventually did, was not playing him a single second. I don't know.
Yeah, so we can get into it, and we know they're the JK supporters, and I do tip my hat to Steve Kerr, because Kerr is real, and Kerr is this isn't just relegated to Jason Tatum and all of those out there in Beantown in Worcester, thinking that he's hating or it's payback on. I don't know what you get payback. They beat you in the finals. It's just, this isn't Boston hate. This is Steve Kerr, who just sticks to his guns. But I think Steve Kerr, to a fault, gets too much in his head about rotate this starting lineup or lineups in a rotation. He's just, again, we don't know the inner workings of JK and the relationship or what's going on. And maybe that's where this all sort of begins and ends.
Yeah, and in the next segment, I don't necessarily want to make it about his future or, again, pass judgment down on a 22-year-old that is not right now in the rotation. Like, we're going to do this in the next segment, and then we're going to be done with it, because the Warriors have a series that they're preparing for that begins tomorrow at 6 o'clock against the Houston Rockets. And we're going to be talking about the players that will impact that series. So coming back on the other side, if you want to get in on it, I got some Kerr sound I want to play for you, and then we'll open up the phone lines at 888-957-9570.
I think Kevin Knox should get a little run.
Braxton Key. Why not? We'll be back after this on Warriors This Week.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
Yay!
Well, a theme of the show today has been age, and I'm pretty sure, Dan, that if I'm going to lose years of my life watching Giannis Antetokounmpo shoot free throws. I mean, this guy takes so damn long to shoot the ball. It's worse than Tim Duncan. I'm going to get gray hairs sitting there watching this 1, 2, 3, brick, 4, 5, 6, brick.
Used to count them down out in Boston. That was fun.
Oh, my God. Like, shoot the ball. That's what I love about Steph Curry. Like, all these guys got free throw routines. They got to get themselves right. Steph just steps. This is how you know he's a good free throw shooter. He's the best ever. Steps to the free throw line, one dribble, boom, up, in. Just don't.
It's like standing over an 8-foot putt. Don't overthink it.
Just put the ball in the hole.
Shoot the thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Dan's been talking about claiming the knockout throne
Next
forever.
year I will be there. There is no way that Mark Grandy will beat me. There's no way that's going to happen.
Yeah, he might because he takes jump shots.
That's ridiculous.
His feet leave the line.
I would want to be in Grandy's spot right now.
Well, so you're telling me again.
Yeah.
And then we'll move on. We'll get into JK talk.
Oh, that's right.
If I don't miss a free throw, I win, right?
That's
all right.
Eventually how it works.
Done.
But you have to make your free throw. Well, yeah. No, eventually, if you don't miss, you can't get knocked out.
Done.
I think your presence will just be really cool to see there.
Well, thank you there, Pasta.
Yeah, I mean, Dan Devone going out to a public company event, with fans engaging. People want to engage with you.
Is there alcohol at this thing?
We could find a way. You should have stopped Pasta after public. Dan Devone's out in public. I swear to God, man, I can't meet you anywhere besides the studio. It's you're busy here. You got this going on.
Monahan's tonight.
Oh, that's the play. Shout out to Carter Chickering if you're listening. Mr. and Mrs. Chick, officially. Probably in a few hours, but...
What the hell with Monahan's? Why aren't we down at the Oli Club?
You want to crash that thing
I
with
really
me?
do.
You want to crash it?
I think you would appreciate it.
Dan has this bright idea. We just walk into Chickering's private event. I'm not going to give you the location, even though we just did. And it says, no, we just pop in for a pop, stop by, have a cocktail, give him a high five, and then be on our way. Carter, if you're listening, we're coming by. We are coming by.
I really hope he's not listening.
Why? I mean, we're trying to show some love to our coworker. This is a supportive family here at 95.7 The Game.
He's getting dressed in the bathroom, and he's got a 95.7 The Game on, listening to Dan Devone's takes on Jonathan Kuminga.
Oh boy, yeah.
Just one cocktail. Let me get on the dance floor for one. Let me just Cabbage Patch to one song.
Oh, I want to go to do the Cabbage Patch for one song. No, I want to go to the ceremony, man. See how big that suit is. Carter Chickering's like 6'8".
Right, man.
Dude, that dude's gonna be. That is a custom, tailored made
glad bag with a tie.
Well, also because he gets in here at 4:30 in the morning. He produces the Joes and Joes on the morning roast, and he's always in sweatpants or some sort of comfortable fit because he rolls out of bed, takes a nap in the Uber on the way over here, and then struts his stuff for the next 8 hours. I haven't seen the guy dress up all but maybe one time, and that was for my birthday. So I haven't really been able to see this guy in his element.
Today's the day.
It is. Congratulations to Carter
Congratulations, my man.
And his beautiful wife. So, Jonathan Kuminga.
Oh.
How do you want to do this? Let me start here. I'll play a piece of sound that was from earlier this week with Steve Kerr. And this is essentially the reasoning behind why we have not seen him the last two games.
I have to read what we need. I have to read, who's playing well together. And to be very frank, the Jimmy JK combination has not been great, and that's the tricky part here. And I'm playing Jimmy 40 minutes a night because Jimmy is one of the very best players in the league, and there's a reason we're here and we're in the 7th seed, and we won whatever it was, 24 of our last 30 games. And the reason is Jimmy. And so it's my job as a coach to keep the team on a path that I think gives us the best chance to win. And for now, that's why I've been leaning into the lineups that I have.
Yeah, it's kind of like we talked about last weekend. I think it's Jimmy Butler that has essentially blocked his path to minutes. And for this team, I can kind of understand why. Now, the big question that is going to arise if the Warriors, for example, lose game 1 to an athletic, young Houston Rockets team is, if Kuminga doesn't have a role, well, couldn't you go to this 22-year-old that has scored 33 points, 25 points, 20 points, and has played well? I think he was a +6 the last time they played Houston, who has played well against this Rockets team. But for now, I can't expect him to get any tick just because he seems to be phased out of the rotation entirely.
First of all, let me just say that's why I appreciate Steve Kerr, and I think a lot of players and just coaches in general. He could be wrong, but he's doing what it is that he sees fit, and that's the respect that I was talking about earlier that you have to have if you want to be a successful head coach in today's NBA. Doesn't mean he's right, though. I strongly believe, and you know this, that Jonathan Kuminga has to have a role on this team if they're going to go anywhere. This is a team that right now in a series that's screaming for Jonathan Kuminga. You need to get young, and you need to be athletic, and you need, more than anything else, somebody who can put pressure on the rim and somebody that can score the basketball, not only score the basketball, but get it on their own. And it's Jonathan Kuminga. We saw it. We saw it in the game against the Clippers, and we saw it. It was apparent to me in the playing game against Memphis, is that somebody else has to be able to get points, not named Butler and not named Steph Curry. They combined for 75 points. That is not, it was an amazing game by those two, not a remedy to go far and win throughout the entire playoffs. And you have one guy who has the ability to do that, and that's Jonathan Kuminga. Now, to get back to your point, and to Steve Kerr's point, that it doesn't work with Jimmy Butler. We'll make it work. I don't believe that, it's not going to work with these two because they have this, this recent history. I saw the Laker game, Ev. Would you not admit that was probably their most impressive win since Jimmy Butler has joined the team at the end of that road trip? At least one of them.
For me, it's Denver, but yeah, I think one of those two games.
Jonathan Kuminga played with Draymond Green. He played with Jimmy Butler, and he was good. And he had 18, 9, and 5, I want to say. And he was clearly one of the reasons why they won that game convincingly. So I've seen it. It can work with Jimmy Butler. And if you're afraid that they both play the same position, that he's taking away the ball from Butler because he wants to ISO on one side, well then take him. Don't run plays through him. Let him just be an athlete and getting garbage, whether it's through rebounds. Let him be an athlete, whether it's through a turnover. Let him fill a lane and run the floor and be on one side of Steph Curry, who has the ball, whoever has the ball in their hands, that you have somebody filling a wing that's named Jonathan Kuminga. Let him just get points, not necessarily through isolating for him, but you need his presence because he's an athlete who's skilled to give you buckets. And if you're going to say, well, we lose too much on the defensive end, well, Buddy Hield's getting run. And I'm tired of seeing Buddy Hield get blown by.
Easy.
Sorry. I do love Chivano. That's right. I thought I took this oath of today to be Chivano's
You're going to be nice to Buddy today.
So my point is, and I'll stop with the JK rant. And again, we only have, if you want to get in on this, you got 15 minutes to do it. I think Jonathan Kuminga has to play in some capacity.
I got you. Well, yeah, let's open up the phone lines. 888-957-9570 is the number. Evan and Dan with you. We were going to talk JK for just this one segment. I don't think he's going to be a big part of this Houston series. I think Kerr tipped his hand down the stretch of the regular season. I don't know what it means for the relationship moving forward. It doesn't seem great. I think some of the coverage of Kuminga, especially recently, has been unfair. Especially a couple of things written recently about how he's not around the team during games. That's not what I've observed. To me, if you want to go after what he has or hasn't done on a basketball court, that's fine. But a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff, to me, has been misrepresentative of his character. And that, to me, is where I draw the line.
During games, what do you mean?
There was something written in the SF Standard about how Kuminga is not on the bench during games. He's not invested in the game when he's been getting these DNPs.
Oh, yeah. No, that's clear.
That's not true.
Well, no, I would say it's true, but it's understandable. To me, a young kid at 22 that's getting this, he's not pouting, but you can clearly see that he's miffed.
Yeah, but to say that he's not there is, I'm at these games. Like during timeouts, when it's in commercial breaks, he's in the huddles.
Yeah.
Like to say that he's not on the bench is not factual. So again, is he a big part of this team right now? No. Has that been hard to handle? Obviously.
Sure.
He's probably pouting about it, sure. But to say that he's just kind of disassociated from the team or to portray him as that, to me, that's a step too far.
Not buying it.
I don't believe it. All right. Tim's in North Carolina. 888-957-9570 is the number. Tim, what's going on? Good morning, my man. Or good afternoon to you.
Yeah, I know. What's up, fellas? Hey, Devon, I agree with you 100%. I mean, 100. But, Dan, I just don't think it's going to happen. I think with the way it happened, kind of finding out right before the Clippers game, hey, we're going to switch the rotation up, and he still wasn't told it was going to be a DNP. I think the shock in all of it, I mean, at some point, Dan, mentally, that's got to be hard, man. And, I mean, we could say this stay ready stuff over and over again, but with and look, the kid has gone through it before, and maybe he can kind of disassociate it and just get out there and do whatever. But I think to run this guy out there, and when you're doing maybe going through a rough sequence and you realize you can't score and now let's go throw him out there, I think you're setting him up for failure. I think at this point, I think we've probably seen the last of him. I get it, Evan, you don't want to go there, but hey, I'm a father, man, and I got a 28 and 26-year-old, and my kids played sports growing up, and I couldn't imagine what I would be telling my kid. I would keep him positive, but there's no way in hell I'll let him come back to that team. I don't care if he had to take $6-7 million. I mean, just for his mental health. And I know you guys are kind of, it's a little bit of fatigue on this station about talking about him, but I think the national media has been asking the questions. The national media is not kind of understanding how a third leading scorer and these type of things can kind of get just shunned like this at the last minute. And Dan, you're absolutely right about the Lakers game. You know, Kirk can bring up a couple of instances where it hasn't worked, but that Lakers game tells you that it can work. So I feel like it's just been kind of a hit job on him. Certain radio hosts on this station, not y'all, but kind of it's been a lot of conversation about him in a negative light. Now that the hit is complete, we don't want to talk about it anymore. It's done. You know, so I've never seen a 22-year-old get blasted and lambasted this way when they've actually never came out and said nothing. I mean, you're absolutely right, Evan. The kid was riding the bike in that first quarter up until he realized he wasn't going to get any burn, and the bike is in the damn hallway over there. So these guys took him riding the bike like he wasn't a part of the team. So again, I appreciate you kind of representing him on that, but I just feel it's been a bit of a hit job, and it's complete. So now we don't want to talk about him anymore. But Devon, I appreciate you recognizing that. Hey, the Pods, Jimmy, J.K., Steph, and Curry lineup, that's a positive lineup. Right? But we don't want to talk about that lineup because that doesn't really fit the narrative. And you recognize it, Devon, and you called it out. But I think at the end of the day, if you care about this young man mentally, you don't want to see him go through this. I would rather him, hey, let's get through the playoffs and let his career end where it is. Because there's no repairing this, man. So I appreciate you guys, man. Hey, on the game, yeah. I think it's going to be a little tough. On old Jimmy, man, because these guys are long, they're athletic, and if they don't go for Jimmy's pump fake, you know, Jimmy's pump fake is key. And the last time around, if these guys don't go for Jimmy's pump fake, man, Jimmy ain't really just going over and above these guys. So, yeah, I know they're going to try and beat them with smarts and all of that, but if they play disciplined defense, not go for the pump fake, kind of how you got to D up DeRozan, you know, it's going to be interesting to see how this thing play out, man. But I appreciate you guys, man. You have a good one.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, I think the national stuff is interesting because I think we are beginning to get a little bit of that questioning of like how come he can't crack the rotation? Like at face value, he's a guy who can get you 15 points, but right now he hasn't fit enough in the time that he's unfairly been stripped of because he got injured for like a few months. And in the meantime, the Warriors found something that's led to, a 24-7 run down the stretch of the season. You know, I understand that it seems a little unfair to Kuminga, but I can also hear the coaching side of it, just looking at it and saying like, we're winning games. The reason why we're we're the 7th seed with a position to make some noise in the playoffs is because of what we've found in his absence. It's not to say that he's done as a player or done in this league, but right now, and I think you said it best a segment ago when we were talking about Kerr. It's like, this is the same guy who benched Jason Tatum on the biggest stage. And it wasn't because Tatum wasn't good. It's because Kerr's trying to win basketball games the way that he knows how. And right now that involves Jonathan Kuminga not being a big part of it.
Yeah, but I think the way you're winning right now, especially that last game, if you're going to expect Jimmy Butler as well as Steph Curry to give you 75 points a contest, it's not going to happen. So the point is, and we've talked about this ad nauseum on this show, it's got to come from somebody else as well, consistently. And what I saw from Moses Moody as well as Podziemski, they look like a lot of young players who are not familiar with being on that stage in the biggest lights, that they weren't ready for the moment, at least in that playing game. And if that's the case, points have to come from somewhere else, and consistent points. And you have a kid on that bench who has the ability to get to the rim and has proven with his raw athleticism that he can score. And if ever there was a series that was screaming for someone like that of Jonathan Kuminga on that current Golden State Warrior basketball team, it's this one against the Houston Rockets. And so for Steve Kerr not to play him, if that's what we're looking at going forward, I couldn't disagree with that more. And I know there's a lot of people out there that, you can get into the Jimmy Butler and they play the same role again. I pointed that Los Angeles Laker team, and you know who's also thrilled that Jonathan Kuminga is not going to be part of this series? Houston. The Rockets are like, thank God. Thank God. What's his career high? 34, and he went for 33 against the Rockets earlier this year.
Yep.
When both those guys were I think Steph was out of that game.
He won him a game. Yeah, with Steph
I'm telling you, the Houston Rockets are like, you mean to tell me that guy's not playing and he's not hurt? Do what it is that you're doing out there, Steve Kerr, and all the drama that you guys are experiencing in the Bay Area. Whew. Thank God. Because he can deal on people, and he's a young, athletic guy against a team that has nothing but young and athletic players.
Let's go to Philmo Mike. Philmo, what's going on? Good morning, man. What's up?
Hey, what's poppin'? Tim kind of hit this. He was in his bag on that last call. I mean, Kerr said what he said, and kind of like, it's funny because, like, I was going to call Mark Willard yesterday because he was talking like, yeah, man, it's like Mark Willard is almost like, because he was kind of saying, like, he was kind of like, JK, he doesn't need to play. And then when Kerr said what he said, he was kind of like in, like, celebratory mode and trying to be humble with it.
Yeah.
Mark Willard's on Mark Willard. But anyway, and he gonna do him. But anyway, my point is, I agree with Dan. It's like the team's job is to coach a player, right, and develop him. And a player's job is to get developed. In my eyes, Kuminga has developed in certain ways. Now, you guys, or when I say you guys, I'm talking about Steve Kerr. They didn't develop into what they needed them or wanted them to be for whatever reason. They didn't mold them for whatever reason. I don't know why. But to sit up there and forecast, hey, I'm not going to play Kuminga. What are you doing? That's not even a good coaching strategy. People be having people questionable up until the day of the tip-off of the game. I would have never did that, for one. And then for two, like coach him up to what you want him to do. If you want him to do certain things, make him do certain things. If he's great at certain things, allow him to do that. Empower him. For whatever reason, Kerr, he didn't really empower Kuminga. Like, only when people got hurt. You got to empower people, like allow somebody a landing place. Okay, you messed up, but it's good, I got you. You got to empower. When them losing seasons, and I hate to bring this up, but like them losing seasons, we could have been developing players to a better extent than we were when we were like chasing this dream that we're a quote unquote championship team. And I mentioned this yesterday. Pedigree means nothing. If we gonna win the game, we gonna win the game based on skill and spirit and merit. Not no, we've been to the championship 4 times and Jalen Green hasn't. If Jalen Green better than us, he gonna pull a Carmelo Anthony and win it in his rookie year.
I got you, Philmo. Thanks for the call, man. I do want to squeeze some people in, Dan, just because I want to wrap up this segment. Let's go to Brian in Palo Alto. I think Brian's got a different view of things. Brian, what's up, man? How we doing?
I'm great. Let's stop the excuses for the guy, okay? Like, he's not played well since he came back, right? He came back to a team that had won 24 of 30 games and played their best basketball when Kuminga was not on the floor. I mean, I think you'd all agree that those are factual statements. Mm-hmm. And so you got to come back in, you got to fit in, and he's been bad. He had one good game against the Lakers. He's been bad in basically every other game. He's shooting 15% from three. So, like, if you don't understand why Kerr's reluctant to play Kuminga, when Kuminga's not playing well, like, he's not played well, he's not doing the things they're asking him to do, which is not auditioning for a second option, which, by the way, they were a losing team when they were trying to do that. It's come in and hustle, which he doesn't do, rebound, which he doesn't do, move the ball, attack the rim. He's not done any of those things since he came back. And so, like, if he did those things, he'd play. So let's stop making excuses for the guy. Let's stop talking about, like, you know, I mean, Kerr, how about Pods and Moody and Post? Has he developed them? Yes. Good young players on cheap contracts that are starters or rotation players. So, like, it's not worked out with Kuminga, and that's on Kuminga. It's not on Kerr or anybody else. And he's not played well since he came back. And it's just, I don't know why. I don't know why he refuses to do these things, but let's just stop making excuses for him, okay? It's okay. He just hasn't played well, and you've got to play well. You got to hustle. He's not done those things, period. Anyways, have a good day, guys.
Appreciate it, Brian. Yeah, I mean, look, there's two sides of the coin. That's how he sees it, and to be fair, like, he's not incorrect. You know, the combination that JK has played the best with has been Steph Curry and Buddy Hield. Since his arrival back from injury, not overall this season. Those two guys, along with, that's who he plays best with. But the Warriors aren't at their best when he's on the floor. And that's kind of, to me, why he's unfortunately been phased out at this point.
Yeah, I think everybody knows how I feel about this.
Yeah.
He's got to play. I'm not entrusting Moses Moody and Podziemski to be the other guys to give me consistent points.
Well, I think the argument is that you don't need them to give you consistent points. You would like it. It's gravy. But you got Moody, Podziemski. You also have Hield. You also have Post. In addition to, obviously, your two leading scorers in Curry and Butler. So, all right. Let's take a break here on the other side. I see AJ in Los Angeles. He wants to get into the matchup. The matchup of the Warriors and the Rockets. What's going to decide the series? Why are the Warriors going to win tomorrow at 6 o'clock at the Toyota Center? Why are they going to win? Or, if you're on the other side, why are they going to lose? 888-957-9570 is the number. Evan Giddings, Dan Devone, on Warriors This Week. We're back after this.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
Not bad, Dan. Not bad. For those that were not listening during the break, because we know you can't, Dan Devone was doing radio play-by-play of...
Hi again, everybody, and welcome.
The game on television, Indiana against Milwaukee. Pretty damn good.
Watch out, Timmy Roy.
He's coming for you. Well, I mean, you have a high standard for broadcasters of all ages and of all levels, quite frankly. And so it was nice to hear you put in some work. I love the description of the overplay by Nembhard. And here come the paces in there in transition. Right corner three, thrown on the way by Nembhard and on the way for Mathurin. Oh, it's in and out, and Giannis grabs the rebound.
Well, basketball is so much fun because it's easier to do, I think, because it's so action-packed and you can get into those rhythms, right? And I think that, again, I always say baseball is so much more difficult is because there's so much lag and you have to somehow entertain or keep people on the edge of their seats in between pitches. That's why, with the Ernie Harwells, and you talk about a lot of those guys are from the South, they have that ability to spin stories. And it's just like somebody gathering around the old porch with the iced tea and just listening to somebody who's pleasant to listen to, telling you a story for 4 hours.
So I think baseball is a little easier now because of the pitch clock. So you have an understood amount of time between pitches that you have to get your information. And basketball is just up and down. And you really have to read that wave of energy, which is generally supplied by the crowd, I think, more than anything else. And so it's kind of a feel thing. And you don't have time to tell stories. You don't have much time to get stats in. And basketball is played so fast nowadays that you really have to be on top of your P's and Q's. Like the Pacers, for example, play one of the fastest brands of basketball in the NBA. The Warriors play, I think they're kind of middle of the pack, upper pack in terms of pace. But then you get a team like the Clippers that just slow it down and grind you out. So you really have to read your team that you're calling the game for.
Really quick before we move on, Adam Amin, he does the Bulls play-by-play.
Yeah, he's great.
You have to see the half-court shot he has or the call he has when Josh Giddey hits the half-court to beat the Los Angeles Lakers. Just like the last, I think it was 12 seconds when they make this remarkable comeback, one of the best games of the year. And he does it with Stacey King, who is, I know Stacey King is not somebody that's, by the way, when you talk about Steve Kerr, and that other side of Steve Kerr, that people think he's the guy next door and politically correct and just a really nice, cerebral academic. You're right. And just mention the name Stacey King to Steve Kerr, and I guarantee you'll see blood in his eyes. Stacey King knocked him out, I want to say, the Final Four at the University of Arizona, and he probably still stays up 4 nights a week rehashing and replaying that Oklahoma game. And then in the NBA, Stacey King played with the Bulls, and sure enough, he and Steve Kerr would get into it, fisticuffs. He has hated that guy going way back to their collegiate days.
There's also particular teams that if you bring up, you can kind of hear, and he'll do it unprompted. Like it was when they were playing the Jazz earlier this year, and someone asked him a question. It was a former player who he knew, and someone asked him a question about his take on where the league is going and the amount of talent and skill. Because I think J.J. Redick had a quote about how it's the most talent that there's ever been. They'd play guys in the 80s off the floor, something like that. And Kerr kind of agreed with him, and he just takes a shot at like the Jerry Sloan Jazz teams that he played against in the finals. He's like, well, I agree. The skill nowadays, you have to be able to run and shoot and pass and do all these things that, you really didn't have to do when you were setting illegal picks back in the 1990s. And he's like going after Hornacek and all these guys that he'd have to check in the finals. And he's like, yeah, that's like he's on record as calling John Stockton a dirty bastard. Like, you can really hear when it comes out, and it's always around playoff time too. He is a competitive, maniacal person. Well, if you really get into it.
To bring it back to this series, one thing I always pay attention to, it's kind of weird, is after a game when Steve Kerr goes over to dap up the opposing coach. And there's that 6 degrees of separation in the NBA where everybody sort of knows everybody. It's sort of incestuous. Like there's players that were on his staff, that whether it's Willie Green or Mike Brown, and you can just see the joy, even if whether it's a win or loss, they have this friendly moment. Watch with him and Udoka. There's no love lost. Like usually with every coach, whether he knows him or not, there's just sort of, they blow into each other's ear. Udoka is about as abrupt as it gets with Steve Kerr. Not that the two don't like each other, but I don't think there's any there's any common ground there. Like, I don't think, and I think that's one of the beauties of Udoka, who does not care if the fraternity of coaches in the NBA do not like him. Like, I don't think he subscribes to that at all. I think he's sort of the guy on the outside looking in.
I don't think Kerr really cares about that either. I mean, he's maybe at face value a more, likable person. I think he does a pretty good job in media. He never buries anybody. He doesn't go out of his way to start feuds with opposing coaches or players. In fact, a lot of times he'll try and calm those fires. But like he don't care what people think about him. And I mean, we just heard in his clip about Kuminga. I also appreciate the honesty and just the frankness with which he speaks. And that's obviously afforded to him because he's a 4-time champion just as a head coach. He's got 9 rings. But Kerr will tell you bluntly what he feels. And from there, it's just completely up to you to decide whether or not you agree with it. And he's pretty honest about, hey, I could be wrong, and he has every right, by the way, to throw his 9 rings in your face whenever he wants, and he doesn't do it. That's another thing that I do appreciate about him.
I think we're both on the same page that we can appreciate what it is that he's doing from a coaching standpoint.
Yeah.
Because he's not appeasing anybody but himself. It's not the fans. It's not Coach out in Vallejo or the caller on line 3. He's doing what he thinks is best for the Golden State Warriors to win another NBA championship.
And that's where I think you do
I disagree with it. Yeah. I want to be on record. I disagree with it, but I can respect the process.
Well, I think that's where you see the influence of some of the great coaches that he's had. Lute Olson back at Arizona, Greg Popovich, Phil Jackson, obviously. Those guys were collaborative, but at the end of the day, it's their way or the highway. Like, those head coaches decided which way their rotations, the game plan, the adjustments were going to go. And Steve Kerr's I think he's got a pretty collaborative and intelligent coaching staff. Terry Stotts has been a head coach. Jerry Stackhouse just came from Vanderbilt, where he was a head coach in college. He's obviously had Mike Brown on his staff. Kenny Atkinson, who's might win Coach of the Year in Cleveland this year. Like, he's had a lot of brilliant minds on his bench, but at the end of the day, Steve Kerr's going to make that final call. He'll weigh what he has to, and I think he's pretty invitive of opinions. But I'm sorry, if he thinks that there is one way to win a series, it's going to be Steve Kerr's way. All right, 888-957-9570 is the number. Evan Giddings, Dan Devone, Warriors This Week. AJ is in Los Angeles. AJ, thanks for hanging on patiently. How you doing, man? Good morning.
Hey, what's going on? Good morning. Happy Saturday afternoon. I think one of you guys mentioned that the Houston Rockets are really excited that Jonathan Kuminga's not playing, especially a guy like Jalen Green and Ahmed Thompson, guys who JK knows very well, who is a defensive nightmare for those guys, and has already proven that, JK is probably the key component who can match with everything that the Rockets do and put them in big trouble. So for them, stylistically, I believe that they are cherishing this opportunity to play the Warriors in this dynamic. I do not believe that the locker room for the Warriors is in good shape because of this Kuminga ordeal. But who knows? We'll see what happens. But at the end of the day, there's a few reasons why JK is not playing, and it has nothing to do with his game. I understand the smear campaigns, but the reason why he's not playing is because he did not sign that deal that they put on the table this past offseason. It has nothing to do with his style. The reason why Moses Moody is playing is because he signed that awful deal this offseason. And Pies is playing. His contract is low. He'll never demand a max contract. So it makes sense that he is playing and having a lot of minutes. And at the end of the day, Steve Kerr didn't really trust Moses Moody like that. He's probably not a big fan of Moses Moody. I mean, we've seen the inconsistencies of how Moses Moody have gotten minutes when he's been one of the best players on the floor, even defensively, and he's been shut down. So I don't know. I don't know. I mean, Jason Tatum, it wasn't this fundamental or stylistic reason why Jason Tatum was placed on the bench. Every coach in this league could have played Jason Tatum in the offseason and still won a gold medal. 98% of the coaches in this league could take this Golden State roster with KD, Klay, Steph, and Draymond and win the championship. I mean, no disrespect to Steve Kerr, but you need great players to win, guys. You need great players to win. The Warriors, there's a good chance they're not going to win this series. One, because they don't have the talent overall to beat them. But two, I believe that Steve Kerr is going to get in the way of himself. And that's probably...
Oh, sorry, you cut off there, AJ. Point taken, though. We appreciate the call.
You're right. You're getting into a meditative state?
Well, I don't want to open up this can of worms.
Well,
I know we did it in the last segment, but
it was supposed to be relegated to one segment.
I know. Kuminga is not playing not because he didn't sign a contract. They're not trying to suppress his value. That's a conversation for the offseason. I don't want to open up the conspiracy theories about why he's not playing. Fact of the matter is he's not playing. If he plays in game 1 or game 2, the next time we see each other, we'll talk about it. How about that? Okay.
Can I say one last thing?
Go for it. Or I knock you out.
What scares me about the decision here, I shouldn't say scare, that might be too powerful of a word, but usually these things are matchup based. It's like he didn't fit against the Clippers, whatever it is that you saw in that Clipper matchup.
Sure.
But what Steve Kerr is telling you is that he's not fitting in or he's not matching up with his teammates. So that's telling me that they're going to stay status quo. And I don't expect to see a lot of them against the Houston Rockets. And again, the last thing I'll say, if I can just go on record, huge mistake of sitting your most athletic, one of the youngest players that can get you points on the bench for a series that is screaming for someone like that, Jonathan Kuminga. Enough said.
Okay. I would also push back. I hear him on the talent aspect of this, like just stacking up the rosters, looking at these two teams. The Houston Rockets absolutely are loaded with talented players, but to me, I wouldn't say they're more talented than the Warriors. They're younger. They're different. And there's more potential in that roster, but right now it's undiscovered, relatively speaking. I do think, and you brought this up about OKC, I think the Warriors can win this series. I'll tell you why I believe they will win the series in our final segment at 11:30. But if you don't beat them this year, you ain't getting them next year.
Houston or OKC or both. Yeah, I agree.
If you don't get Houston now and knock them off in their first real chance at a postseason push, they might be a little bit ahead of schedule. You ain't beating them in the near future. Because Jalen Green's 22. Şengün's 22. Jabari Smith's 23. Ahmed Thompson's 22. They got a bunch of young 20-somethings, and a few of them are already under contract and lock and key. You ain't beating this team now, you ain't going to get them in the next 5 years.
I couldn't agree with you more. Not to mention that they got draft capital, so whatever it is that they feel that they are missing, they can go out and get. Whether it's Kevin Durant, they can go out and get those guys. So the door's ajar a little bit. They can got, I think, this year, including OKC. I know you disagree with me on that, but again, when you think about what it is that we saw with Moses Moody and Brandon Podziemski, because I'm with Steve Kerr, that lineup with Podziemski at the 2, Moses Moody at the swing, and then the front court of Draymond Green, Butler, obviously Steph at the point. I mean, the numbers don't lie. They've been very good. But there's the regular season, and then there's the postseason, or there's the big games that are postseason-esque, like that of the Clippers, like that against Memphis. And I'll tell you right now that both Podziemski and Moody did not look like the same players. And why? Well, because it's a little different when you're on center stage and the lights are in your eyes and everybody's watching. All of a sudden, it's like, where are you, Draymond? Daddy, where are you? I got to give you the ball because I'm a little frightened right now. And it's a very, very different animal. And if that's what you can expect from Moody and Podziemski, and it's not a knock on them, Like there's a rites of passage to get to the NBA Finals or to win in the postseason. You need battle scars. They don't have them. The other three do. And that's why, again, I think this is a series where Jonathan Kuminga needs to play, because suddenly those two guys I don't think can be relied upon as much as they have been in the last month to 2 months of the season, where Podziemski was giving you like 28 a game for a little while there. It's a little bit different when you think about the postseason, especially what Houston's going to do to you defensively. Those shots aren't there, and if you start thinking about it and you start getting the yips, then you're gonna go back to Podziemski, who was so disappointing in the beginning part of the season. And if there isn't a third guy that I can rely on, like I thought Podziemski could be, to give you points specifically, you cannot sit Jonathan Kuminga. You cannot DNP that guy. There's no excuse for that.
Joe's in Seattle. Wants to talk about Steve Kerr. Joe, what's up, man? How we doing in the PNW?
Evan, Dan, if you're good, I'll give you a bottle of my marinara. I still have it for you.
Where the hell have you been?
I've been lurking in the Pacific Northwest. I moved up here a couple of years ago, but I listen every week. And I'm trying to allow the Bay Area guys to have their takes, but some of these local takes, and if you allow me to be serious for just a little bit here.
Okay.
To the gentleman who said that this was a hit job on JK, show some respect. Steve Kerr's father was assassinated. Steve Kerr's father was the real victim of a real hit job. You couldn't give your kid some advice? Well, Steve Kerr never got to get his father's advice because his father is dead. So let's tone it down. We may not like and agree with Steve's decision, but it's a basketball decision. It's not a personal one. It's not conspiracy, not about contracts. He may prove to make a terrible mistake by doing this, but it's purely a basketball decision. And we're going to have to ride it out. You know, what else is there to say?
I got you, Joe.
But these tone down these crazy things, and it's not a conspiracy. And go Dubs. Talk to the other guys. I'll call back in, Dan. I got some marinara. I got some cacio pepe for you. Everything's ready to go. It's all ready to go.
Look forward to it, buddy.
Oh, my God. I'm salivating.
Cacio pepe. Cece's cacio pepe. I'm telling you, man. Off the hook.
What?
It's a pasta.
What is that? Well, I understand it's a pasta.
It's a cream-based, basically just rich, very high-caloric.
Like our own Steven Risotto?
Pasta.
I was just going to say, what? I looked up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, bad choice of words by the caller, but I don't.
Yeah. Look, we don't have to go down that road. All right. I want to get Jonathan in San Francisco in here. Jonathan, what's up, man? You feeling good about this series?
Oh, yeah. I recognize the Rockets' talent. You know, you don't just walk into a number 2 seed and win all those games without talent. But that said, hey, you need a dog running his mouth. That's all our guys need, man. They're going to get goon up Draymond Green and goon up Jimmy Butler. Because what he said we're soft, we're pretty boys. That's bulletin board materials, man. I'm going to give them one game. We're going to get one game where the basketball it's not going in for our Warriors, but it's going to be a gentleman sweep because he ran his mouth. And for a coach to feel like he needs to get involved, he knows deep down his heart and through his bone, he knows it's a mismatch. Because they may be talented, but they're not ready, and they don't know what the playoff is all about. You know, the playoff Jimmy is for real. You know, Miami made a mistake, letting him go, and we're gonna get a real hungry Jimmy. Because to cement his legacy, you know what he needs is a ring.
Thanks, Jonathan. Yeah, well, that would definitely put him in a different echelon. But you can't overlook the Rockets. You just can't. I'm sorry. A gentleman's sweep, and I understand you're speaking with a lot of confidence and you love the team, and that's all well and good. I think this is going to be a deep series. I don't know whether it's 6 or 7. It's going to be taxing. Like the Rockets, if the Warriors are able to overcome them, they're the kind of team that is going to take a pound of flesh. And that's also why I think you got to get them this year because the Warriors aren't getting any younger. They're best players. And the Rockets are just getting older and moving into their prime. And it's an opportunity to catch him in an inexperienced position. The Warriors have some of those players too, but Houston is moving in a northern direction. Their stock is rising. And the Warriors, by virtue of their best three players, their stock is probably going in the other direction.
One of the key players in all of this isn't a kid, and it's Fred VanVleet, because he's the one calming influence that they have on this team, and he's been good for them. But he's the one veteran.
Stand him.
He's the one veteran. Shout out Shockers, Wichita State. But he's the one guy that he's been there, obviously, with Toronto. And he's beaten the Warriors, but he's a guy that he calms them down and they rely on him. And when Houston, it wasn't coincidental that when Houston really struggled is when he wasn't available for that month and a half of the season. So they're a much better team with VanVleet. Not to mention, he's another guy who's very good defensively.
If that's the leader of your team, I'm not as afraid. And this is honestly why I think I favor the Warriors in this series. Who's their guy? Who is
I would say
the Rockets
Şengün.
guy? I agree. And to me, the series in many ways is going to be decided by that matchup. Alperen Şengün against Draymond Green. I think Draymond is as equipped as anybody to try and not neutralize him completely, but make his life difficult. And Şengün has had some good games against the Warriors this season. But if Draymond is able to win that 5 matchup, I don't see how the Rockets get it done, because I don't think that Jalen Green is that guy. Fred VanVleet, while he's had some big moments in the postseason, specifically against the Warriors, is not that dude. And Amen Thompson is offensively not there yet. So that's why I think that if you get to a final 5-minute clutch time situation, I know what the Warriors are going to do. I have no clue what the Houston Rockets are going to do.
And they've struggled with that all year long. It's not only in crunch time, but it's in those half-court sets. Who do we give the ball to? Who are we running action through? And they struggle with that. That's why they're one of the worst in the NBA. And to get back to to get back to Draymond and Şengün, and Şengün fits that Draymond Green profile where he's
European.
He's European. He's from overseas. He's bigger than Draymond, which means that he will get punched at some point during this series.
Say that facetiously. A little tongue-in-cheek there. We got to hit a break here. We're going to give our predictions on the other side. If you want to get in on the conversation about the Warriors and the Rockets, no, I'm going to take a plier and pry that prediction out of you like a molar, as if I was a dentist.
Is that how they're doing it these days?
I don't know.
Pliers. That's like they used to do that in the Three Stooges. I
think they did that when they had no other choice and they lacked modern medicine. I'm going to give you some medicine on the other side. How about that? I'll cure you of your preview woes.
Wedding today. Be nice.
It's not our wedding.
It's Wedding Crashers.
All right, I'll be Owen Wilson. You can be Vince Vaughn. How about that? You got the gift of gab. All right.
I'll be the cameo by
Will Ferrell.
Will Ferrell. Yeah.
Mom, the meatloaf. Never know what she's doing back there. All right, we'll be back after this on 95.7 The Game.
We want it now! The meatloaf! The meatloaf!
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
That's why Pasta's the best in the biz. He just is. Will Ferrell, Wedding Crashers, iconic.
What's she doing back there?
I don't know. I don't really know what she's doing. What does she do? You still live at home with your mom? Oh, yeah, it's great. Oh, my God, I'm salivating. Well, that was over some Italian dish that I didn't know about. I think it was Joe called in. He said he's going to get us some marinara sauce.
Oh, the cacio e pepe.
Yes, the catch your own pepe.
Come out to New York and see, so whip you up a plate.
Dude, NYC, like I've been
some gravy.
I've been all over the country. I've lived in 7 states. I've very seldom been to NYC. I feel like it's the place that everyone goes, and I'm like the only person who hasn't been. Thank you, Steve. I'm the only person.
Now you got him going. He's going to be dropping every 30 seconds.
The only person who hasn't really spent a whole lot of time there as an adult, and I've been literally everywhere else. Like I've been to every small town you have never heard of, and yet I haven't been to NYC.
Hey, you're a small town guy. You're like Steve Kerr. You just stay in your lane.
Little Stevie Kerr.
Do what it is that you think people want you to do or expected of you. Hell, don't play Jonathan Kuminga. Don't go to New York. Stay out in Greenville, North Carolina.
By the way, before we Greenville, no. I don't know if I can live in Greenville.
Greensboro?
Greensboro, absolutely. That's where my uncle lives right now. He lived in Brooklyn for 40 years, down near Red Hook, Brooklyn.
Oh yeah,
and
that's a beautiful area.
He moved to Greensboro. I just saw him on the recent trip. I go, is there any part of you that misses the city? He goes, no, absolutely not. I got a yard. He's got a dog. He's got a parking spot. He's got all of these simple amenities in life that are just unafforded to you when you live in the city.
Yeah, no, it's sort of the Woody Allen sort of way of attacking life in New York. You either stay there and you don't leave, like Kevin Bacon, Woody Allen, or when you do leave, you never go back. You're like, holy crap, this is out here? Why was I living there?
Well, I don't mind living in a city. Like I love San Francisco. I love living here. I've lived in Coal Valley. I've lived on the west side. I live in the Mission District right now. I love where I live. But it's not really a massive metropolitan area. Like you can have the sort of small town feel if you want. You can get away in these parks. You can go outside the city. All of that is very accessible. Whereas I feel like if you're in New York, I don't know, I've never lived there, but it does seem like if you're in it, that's the life you're living. You got no other choice.
That's it. You can go to, maybe you can escape and, find a patch of green grass in Central Park. That's about the extent of it. By the way, last shout out, New York City.
Okay.
Barney's Green Grass. Are you a bagel guy? You're bagel, eggs and sort of lox and bagel and lox and
absolutely
white fish.
I usually have to make my own because there's not a lot of places in San Francisco that make.
Well, I'm telling you,
or the lines are out the.
You can't get a bagel in San Francisco, and you can't get a pizza slice in San Francisco. Both of which Barney Greengrass and the Upper West Side.
You can.
Well, I mean, dude, you're drunk at 4 a.m. You'd eat anything.
I'm not. You try to paint me in this light. You know what? Fine, let's go there. The only thing that I had an issue with last night during my tour was we got to be pool table etiquette has fallen off a cliff in this particular city. You cannot get ran off a table by yours truly and then tell me that you're leaving because I take too long to play. That's not the way that you show respect to someone who just waxed you 3 straight. There was one game, Dan, the first one where I turned him around, he didn't get to touch the table. I literally ran the table.
Really?
Yes, he didn't get a shot. And yes, I was feeling it last night, but then you can't come tell me that I play too slowly. Put the ball in the hole. I'm the Los Angeles Clippers. I play slow. My pace of play is not very high.
Where do you go to play pool in the city?
All around. Last night I was in the Haight, but all around. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. As long as the table, the felt is not skewed, then we're doing good.
I can play, so you and I should definitely do it up. Just not a pool. I like playing billiards, somebody's house. But if I'm at a bar, I don't want to be distracted from alcohol and conversation. Like, I think that's what the bar supplies. Like, you sit there, you talk, and as you drink more, you get more bold with your stories. Maybe you embellish things. And if you're single, you get, you get that liquid courage to go talk to some girl that you otherwise would not. That's the extent of a bar. When I'm playing pool, it's like someone turns on the TV. It's like, yeah, I'll go to a sports bar, but then I'm like, yeah, I'm a little distracted here. Like, I need to sit there. I'm very linear. Bartender, alcohol, me, conversation. Boom. End of story.
Yeah, but you're a little more extroverted than I am. I feel like you enjoy those kinds of conversations. Not that I don't, but I do enjoy having a game on. At least there's something to, if I get into a little more of a quiet mode that I can engage with. Maybe not the broadcast doesn't, I don't really care. I don't have to listen to games, but just having a game on is nice. So you can kind of drift between the conversation and have some sort of relief in case your conversation with, a nice young lady doesn't go as planned, and she essentially gives you the cold shoulder. I still have Obi Toppin.
Yeah, so then you just put your head up and look at the screen and say, I was never very interested in you to begin with. I'm just keeping an eye on the game.
It's better than opening the weather app.
Did I miss something?
Oh, I love the randomness of pasta.
Pasta, where did that come from?
So if I'm with you. As if you're at a bar and you don't have a TV, you got to play with your phone, right?
You've never heard of that, Evan? Where when you're bored,
the weather app?
Yes, people actually do that. They pull up the weather app. When they're bored and they're somewhere.
I thought it was like a sign. Like, I don't want to talk to you. I'd rather look at what the temperature is outside of a bar.
Well, that's the beauty of a bar. If you don't have the distraction of a pool table or a jukebox or a television, is that you've got to sit there. And if there's other people of the opposite sex or somebody you're interested in, it's just eye contact. It's awkward, but you're in the game, man. Or you're that guy at the end of the bar who's just throwing back cocktails and talking to the bartender and letting him know about all the difficulties in your life.
Well, I kind of like sidling up to generally older individuals, whether they're men or women, because they always have stories. Like, I was talking to this guy from Monaghan, Ireland yesterday at the bar, and he lived in San Francisco for 15 years, and he's taking me down all these different places in Ireland to go and telling me about stories from 580 AD and these different structures that are built, and the time of year to travel to Ireland. I love learning about people's stories and their history.
Yeah, well, I would suggest any bar in New York, especially PJ Clark's. There's a chain of them in New York. You sit down, anybody at that bar, nobody's with anybody. They're all a bunch of men, women, or by themselves that are regulars. And you sit down and pick their brain, anybody, and it'll be the most fascinating conversation. Speaking of which, let's get back to the Warriors.
Yeah, let's do it. What the
hell are you doing here?
Yeah, well, you're mentioning New York. Yeah, you want to quickly go around these postseason series and tell me what you think?
No.
Well, we're going to do it anyways. Let's start in New York, Dan. How do you feel about the Knicks?
Go, Detroit. Go, Detroit. Go.
I thought you were a Knicks fan. You sit courtside at MSG with Ben Stiller.
I wish. No, I think
ringside.
They can't beat good teams, and Detroit's very similar to that, I think, of Houston.
I agree.
And so, are they a little bit ahead of schedule here? I mean, that's another team that...
Well, they have what? This is one of the greatest turnarounds in NBA history, a team that was historically bad last year and now is a 6 seed. The difference between them and Houston, quite honestly, is they have a guy. Like, they have their guy.
Yeah.
Cade Cunningham
it's for real.
Is their dude. He is very, very good. And the Houston Rockets, while they have a compilation of scores, I do not look at Jalen Green most certainly in that light. I like the Knicks to win, but I think it's going to be a long series. Do you see any upsets in the East? We got Cavs, Heat, Knicks, Pistons. I guess you like the Pistons, and then Celtics, Magic.
No.
Pacers, Bucks. You think the Bucks will beat the Pacers? I kind of like Milwaukee.
I kind of like Indiana. The way Indiana's been playing. Yeah, the way Indiana's been playing over the last month, that's one of the best teams. They almost caught the Knicks for the 3 seed. They're really good. But Halliburton's kind of weird in the postseason because especially against the Knicks last year, he has games where he's Tyrese Halliburton, then he disappears. Like, there were a couple of games where he had single digits and wasn't shooting.
Well, I think he struggles against teams with physicality. Like, it's a little Curry-ish early in his career. Like, that first postseason run, you saw him get off against Denver, and then the Spurs with some of their older, more physical players, they were able to frustrate him really after game one. And so that's I think something he's run into. Yeah, by the way, he also got benched by Steve Kerr in the Olympics.
But by the way, you always have to pull for a team that has TJ McConnell on it. He's just a survivor.
Dude, TJ McConnell, I know you like him because he went to Arizona, but TJ McConnell is, I was looking at the stat, he takes like the closest shots to the rim of like almost any player in basketball, and he's 6'1".
I know, I love
He just
him.
kind of Steve Nash dribbles into the paint and takes these like 8-foot fadeaways. And his average length of shot is one of the shortest in basketball, even though he himself is one of the shortest players in basketball.
He's kind of like Pat Spencer, but he's made a career out of it.
Or Cam Spencer. In the West, OKC Grizzlies, 1/8. Any chance for Memphis?
I think Memphis gets a game.
Gentlemen's sweep.
I mean, is there any chance for them to beat OKC? No.
I thought they were too young.
It's going to happen, but it's not going to happen in that first round.
Okay.
With Memphis.
All right. Lakers Timberwolves.
Wow.
3-6. God, all the Western series.
That's a good series. That's a really good series.
Might not even be the best series.
That'll go pretty deep.
I agree.
And that's what you're hoping, right? If you're the Warriors and you're able to advance to the semis, you want both Minnesota or the Lakers, or whatever team that you're going to face, you want them spent.
Well, and that's why we talked about this a little bit off the top of the show, and I'll reiterate it for people who have filed in since or are listening now in the last hour. If you're a Warriors fan, this is the perfect playoff scenario for you. You get a young, inexperienced Houston team in round one, and if you win, you play either Minnesota, who you're 3-1 against, or the Lakers, who look like a very different team and a bad matchup for you, or a good matchup for you, now without Anthony Davis, and instead it's Luka Doncic. If the Warriors cannot make a deep title run or a postseason run this year with this kind of setup, they are going to have to beat one of Oklahoma City, Denver, and the Clippers, the three teams that they have struggled against the most this season. That's it. So everything has laid out perfectly for them. And I know they had to thread the needle by winning that 7-8 play-in game, but everyone has got to feel like this is set up for them to do some special things.
So the one thing about Minnesota, we know that it's going to be Ant-Man. And hopefully, again, we get back to the battle scars, and you have to have gone through it at least a couple of times. Remember him a year ago where he just was not comfortable being in games like that in the Game 7 against Dallas in the Western Conference Finals and just sort of disappeared. But once you get past him being your number one, is it Julius Randle you're putting the ball in? Naz Reid? It gets a little dicey from that point forward.
Yeah, but I think that Ant is so great that he could be the best player in that series.
And you know what he does
That's what
now?
you need him to be. Plays defense.
Well, no, it's just three-point shooting.
Oh, yeah.
He's a volume.
He takes like 15 a game.
He's huge.
He takes so much. Actually, I think that's kind of one of his weaknesses. He gets three happy, but
that's part of what's, in a larger picture, it's sort of what's wrong with the NBA. Is that Ja Morant, too, is incorporating shooting more threes. I want to see Ja Morant going to the rim. I want to see Ant-Man taking someone off the dribble and throwing down on two dudes. But that's sort of dialed back because these guys are now like, well, it's all about making threes. That's sort of the way the game is played these days. I think we lose a little bit there.
Yeah, I like the Lakers in that series. I just think LeBron and Doncic in particular has just, last year what he did to the Wolves in the Western Conference Finals was incredible.
He's playing really well now,
He's going to eat Gobert.
But the thing about LA now, it's not just a two-headed monster. You have to put Austin Reeves. He's got to get top billing, man. That's a three-headed monster now. He's real this year.
And they kind of they play better when they go small, and they just put basically 5 wings on the floor. Reeves more of a guard, but with Dorian Finney-Smith, they play well. Hachimura now, they're a formidable team. Who do you like before we get to the Warriors and the Rockets and wrap this bad boy up? Who do you like in the Denver, the Nuggets Clippers series?
Wow.
I think that's the best first round matchup.
I think that if Kawhi continues on this trajectory and doesn't get hurt, I think that's a tough team to beat. It really is.
they have all the makings of not just a team that can win a round, but a team that could potentially win a championship. You have a verified postseason badass in Kawhi Leonard, who's done it in multiple locations. You have, I think, and he is, a championship head coach.
Yeah, by the way, when you say he's done well in the postseason, he's like historically one of the greatest to do it in the postseason. Like, if you look at his numbers, they're off the charts. Like, he is Wilt Chamberlain-esque in the not good, like ridiculously good.
He elevates his play the way that Jimmy Butler does. Only Kawhi Leonard's a better basketball player, with all due respect to Jimmy Butler. That's just the difference. And now James Harden doesn't have to be the leader on that team. Zubats is looking like an animal. And again, they have a championship head coach. Like, they also have I think they have a couple of really good coaches on their staff too. But yeah, the Clippers are going to be tough.
Oh yeah. Van Gundy's a good coach.
Oh yeah.
Them. Like, Van Gundy is, to see Van Gundy back in the center stage and not
I miss him
behind a mic. I know, I do too. I really do. But
the NBA Finals are going to be a rough listen this year.
I think he's sort of dizzy. I want to say he's taking care of the defense for LA, but he's good, man. Van Gundy is that's a brain.
And I think that could be the difference in the series. I still like Denver. I just generally lean towards the team with the best player in the series. And Jokic is unreal. But Adelman is 4 games of experience under his belt, basically.
That's ridiculous. Don't fire a guy with 4 games remaining in the season.
No, I'm sorry. It sounded like they had to go. They wanted to do it before the deadline. Or before the All-Star break.
Oh, you mean the package deal with him and Booth?
Yeah, if it was just Malone, I would say that's kind of BS, but you also fired the general manager. Like, it sounded to me like the Cronkies just looked at these 2 guys and said, get the hell out of here. I mean, seriously, you're making this a toxic workplace for literally everyone. Nikola Jokic didn't even stand up for his head coach. And in fact, he said, well, now the beast shall be awakened. Or something like that.
Well, usually those 2 are a package deal.
Give me Denver.
You like Denver?
Yeah, why not? Jamal Murray, he's back. He's going to swing this series. Give me the Nuggets. All right, Dan. Couple minutes left in the show.
I'm not going to give you a prediction.
What the hell?
But are we talking game 1 of the series?
Yeah, both. Yeah. But game 1 tomorrow, 6 o'clock, 95.7 the game, lock in.
Yeah, I just don't do it. So I'm not going to change now. But what I do want to say, again, is how much fun this is. This is... And not to just localize it, but I think this is the series that is the most entertaining in round 1. And it's sort of unusual for the Warriors, right? Because the lowest seed, I want to say, over the last 10 years was that 3 seed in 2022, and they won the title, right? And so usually you're playing, they had Denver in the first round, or when you're the number 1 seed, you're playing a team that typically you're going to steamroll, although it didn't necessarily go according to plan. But now when you're taking on someone like that of the number 2 seed and you're the Warriors, and again, all the subplots in this thing, I'm just so excited it's returned. I want to know, again, I'm going to throw this back at you, who's the first guy to get ejected?
First of all, that's the weakest prediction I've ever heard in my entire life. Second of all, who's the first guy to get ejected?
Yes, in the series. Houston and the Warriors.
I don't know if there's betting odds, but my guess is the favorite would be Dillon Brooks.
Really?
Yeah.
Not Draymond.
No. Dude, Draymond's been on pretty good behavior this year.
All right.
You know, honestly, first guy to get ejected, Udoka.
I was going to say.
Ime Udoka.
He can't get ejected, though.
Why not?
In the playoffs. No.
Oh, yeah, he can. They're getting ran in game 1. He decides to light a fire.
Okay. If you're getting run, but you can't get ejected in a close game as a head coach.
No, I actually don't think either team is dumb enough to get ejected in a close game.
Okay, who's the first guy to lose it then? We'll stop short of ejection. Like they're going right to the...
To lose it? Pods.
What are you talking about? Lose it, I'm talking about emotionally. Like come unglued. Like be Draymond, but not get ejected. Like to completely... Maybe in a presser is like, you know...
Oh, I thought you meant on the floor. Like I could see Pods absolutely getting into it with...
Pods?
Dude, he's
pretty mild-mannered.
You gotta watch the games. He does a lot of talking. It's mainly to the refs. But
but I don't see. Does he get into it with other players? Am I missing something here?
He talks.
Okay.
He talks.
What
Well, he doesn't back down is the thing.
What does he got to do for you to like him?
Who, Pods?
Yeah.
I like when people are chirping. I don't know. There's just something about it. I told you, Dan, I'm jealous of him. Right. What can I say? It's the fro. It's the fro.
So go ahead. Who do you like? And tell me why.
I like the Warriors. I think they're a better team.
Okay.
And it's not as much about the experience as it is, I think they're going to be able to execute in the half court down the stretch of games better than Houston. And that's what's going to win them these games. The combination of Curry and Butler gives them both isolation and motion. And that's what you're going to need to beat Houston because their defense is so tough. Like one stat that stood out to me looking at this series is actually Houston contests, on average, the least amount of three-pointers in the league of any team. My guess is it's because they guard everyone. Like the amount of threes that you get off against them is very low. And so they also don't mind giving the Gary Payton IIs, the Draymond Greens, the Jimmy Butlers wide open threes. The guys who shoot the ball well from three, they will lock down and make sure that they don't get those looks off. And so I just think it's going to come down to them executing in the half court, executing inside the 2-point line. And I think the Warriors have the ability to do that at a higher level than Houston. And that's what's going to win them the series. I'll take the Warriors in 6.
I will say this. I do have a prediction. And sorry, it's going to go back to Jonathan Kuminga. And thankfully, we don't have to open up the phone.
So you're not going to predict the series, but you're going to get...
Yeah, if Jonathan Kuminga doesn't play...
Good thing we got 2 minutes.
If he doesn't have a significant role, you're not beating Houston.
I'll bet you on that.
Okay.
I also think that he is going to play.
He has to.
Well, I think it'll be early in the series because the games are less important.
But if he plays well, he's not going to get DNP'd again.
No, but I do think all right. It's a game 7, winner go home elimination game, and Kuminga has not played spectacularly in the series. You ain't going to see a minute.
That's fair enough.
I just, in those games that you got to have, I don't see Kerr.
But if he earns his minutes by playing well early on in the series, you're willing to put him on the court in the closing moments?
No.
Wow.
No, I don't think he is I don't think Kerr is. Not necessarily about me. I just don't think Kerr goes with guys that he trusts. And I think that also applies to a further extent to Moody and Pods. If Moody's not playing well, he's going to close with Gary Payton II because he knows what he's going to get from him. He's more inclined to lean into his veterans in crunch time because he's seen those guys in big moments and he trusts them. And that is a big part of winning tight playoff games is you got to trust who's on the floor.
Well, if he's going to stay that close-knit to the boys that he trusts the most, what's going to end up happening is that Steve Kerr and the rest of that van filled with old men are going to be, on a one-way ticket back to the Bay Area. You got it.
We can talk about this.
We'll pick it up next week.
No,
God, it's so exciting. Tomorrow.
Yeah, the playoffs are underway. Well, they already are underway. Yeah, but
You like that? You like that?
Bucks and 6 ain't looking good. They stink. God. And I wasted at least 15 minutes of this show and my life watching Giannis at the free throw line. All right, Dan, next time we talk, we'll have 2 games to discuss between the Warriors and the Rockets. Game 1 tomorrow night. Myself and Mark Grandy are going to have pre and post for you beginning, I think, at 5 o'clock for the 6 o'clock tip against the Houston Rockets. Or the 6:30 tip. It's a late game. All right here on 95.7.
Yeah, it's almost like 5 days rest because it's so late.
Yeah, well, they get 4 off now, and then they get 2 between Sunday and Wednesday, and then Wednesday and Saturday, and we'll talk next Saturday. All right here on 95.7 The Game. Big fan of Dan Devone. A big thank you. I'm a big fan. Big thank you to Dan Devone, along with Steven Risotto. Happy early birthday, Pasta. I'll buy you your first beer sometime this week. For Evan Giddings, so long here on 95.7 The Game. You've been listening to Warriors This Week.